Rimuru Tempest. Reincarnated as a slime. I, the master of elemental power. Chapter 41. Realizing that conventional elemental bombardment would be difficult to end the battle quickly, and might instead be feeding the opponent, Charlotte immediately changed his strategy. Since direct damage is too inefficient, I'll restrict your movement first, then slowly figure out how to crack your recovery ability. With a thought, the authority of the Dominator quietly began to operate. This time, he did not directly manipulate external elements, but instead performed a delicate conversion of his vast magic essence, reversing its nature into surging life energy. It's a bit wasteful, but it should be effective. Charlotte muttered softly, pressing his hands against the scorched and broken ground beneath his feet, ruined by the battle. As the energy full of vitality was injected, a miracle occurred. From the scorched earth, countless emerald sprouts burst forth at an incredible speed, immediately growing, intertwining, and expanding wildly. These were not ordinary plants, but magical constructs infused with life energy, incredibly tough and containing powerful binding force. In the blink of an eye, a massive wood dragon, composed entirely of lush vines and hard wood, rose from the ground. This wood dragon was lifelike, with distinct scales, and its eyes shimmered with the glow of life. It let out a silent roar, carrying the might of nature, and fiercely coiled around the boar-headed Demon King. The boar-headed Demon King clearly hadn't expected the opponent to suddenly use this kind of method. It roared, swinging its massive cleaver and using its heavy round shield to block. Wood chips flew and vines snapped, but more vines wrapped around it in succession. The wood dragon's massive body acted like the toughest shackles, tightly binding the boar-headed Demon King's limbs, torso, and even its neck. The immense contracting force made its skin creak loudly. Roar. The boar-headed Demon King struggled furiously, its terrifying strength pulling the wood dragon's body taut. New cracks constantly appeared, only to be repaired instantly by the life energy. It tried to devour the vines wrapped around it, but these plants were essentially constructed from highly condensed life energy. Since they were not ordinary matter, the effectiveness of its devouring ability was greatly reduced. For a moment, the boar-headed Demon King was actually temporarily restrained by this sudden wood dragon. Although it was still struggling wildly, the wood dragon clearly couldn't confine it for long. But this bought Charlotte valuable time to breathe and think. It worked. Sure enough, restraints made of pure life energy, to a certain extent, can circumvent its resistance and devouring capabilities against elements and magic essence. Charlotte sighed slightly in relief, looking at his temporarily locked opponent. However, this is only treating the symptoms, not the root cause. Once it adapts or breaks free, it will still be trouble. I must find a way to completely resolve it during this time, Dominator. Analyze the weaknesses in its core energy flow and regeneration mechanism. Charlotte controlled the wood dragon to hold the boar-headed Demon King tight, contemplating his next move. The prompt from the Dominator sounded again in his mind. Analysis. Individual Krut's consciousness is in a state of violent conflict and instability. It is possible to attempt to manipulate the binding entity, wood dragon, and reverse intrude extremely fine wood fibers into its nervous center and memory core through its energy circulation pathway. This process will cause it immense pain, but there is a very high probability of forcibly reading its superficial and deep memory fragments. Estimated success rate, 87.3%. There is a certain risk, but it may yield crucial intelligence regarding its condition and the manipulator behind it. Read its memory. Although it feels like taking advantage of someone's plight, this is a special situation. Charlotte looked at the monster struggling frantically, knowing only roaring and hunger, and made up his mind. Leniency towards the enemy is cruelty to oneself and one's allies. Information is paramount. I have no choice. I apologize in advance. Charlotte's gaze sharpened, and the wood dragon restraining the boar-headed Demon King underwent a change. The tip of one particularly tough vine suddenly became razor-sharp. It shimmered with the concentrated, emerald life energy, like a living thing. Precisely stabbing the side of the boar-headed Demon King's head, not for killing, but for linkage. Rooar. The moment the vine pierced it, the boar-headed Demon King let out an unprecedented scream of pain. It struggled even more violently, as if its soul had been touched. Meanwhile, Charlotte's consciousness, following this root of energy, abruptly plunged into the boar-headed demon king's sea of consciousness, which was filled with endless hunger and madness. Fragmented, chaotic, yet incredibly clear images forcibly surged into Charlotte's mind. An endless desert, a scorching sun, cracked earth. A young hobgoblin tribe leader, with simple but desperate eyes, was struggling to trek with a small group of similarly parched and dying tribesmen, searching for a suitable place for their tribe to survive. His tribesmen fell one by one, turning into dried corpses. The despairing hobgoblin leader knelt on the ground, letting out a silent wail, his tears instantly evaporating. A figure wearing a beak mask appeared like a ghost, offering clear water and food. In that moment, what ignited in Krut's eyes was a pure yearning for survival and gratitude. Eat, drink, and then, devour, evolve, become a demon king. This is your reward to me. The seductive voice echoed in his ear. The instant he was named, Krut, a cold and greedy power surged into his body. Twisted and combined with his desire for survival, his original sanity was rapidly eroded and suppressed. Endless hunger, the desire to devour everything, watching his own tribesmen gradually turn into monsters who knew only how to devour. The pain and struggle deep within his heart were completely submerged. These memory fragments pierced Charlotte's heart like ice picks. He saw that the essence of this demon king, who had brought countless disasters, was actually a tragic hero who only wanted to lead his tribe to survive. But whose purest wish had been exploited and twisted by an evil demon. Its good nature had never vanished, only buried deep beneath endless hunger and pain. His consciousness returned to reality. Charlotte looked at the boar-headed demon king, still roaring in pain, yet seemingly revealing the sorrow deep within its soul, and his expression changed completely. His previous playful and testing mindset vanished, replaced by a complex emotion. Sympathy and fury. So that's it, it wasn't destroying for destruction's sake, but just, to survive. Even at the cost of becoming what he hated most. Krumit, and the fool behind you, you truly deserve death. He took a deep breath, and a determined light flickered in his golden dragon eyes. If you lack thunderous methods, do not harbor a bodhisattva heart. I guess that saying was waiting for me here. Fortunately, I happen to possess both. Sympathy is one thing, but letting it go would only allow the tragedy to continue to escalate. Saving it is not just giving it salvation, but also the key to completely ending this disaster. Furthermore, it would sever the conspiracy of the mastermind and gain a powerful, grateful fighting force. I've decided. Charlotte murmured softly, his voice low but carrying undeniable power. Your sins will be repaid by my own hands. Your salvation will be granted by me. Notification. Individual name, Charlotte Tempest. Race, Dragon. Its racial inherent skill, True Dragon's Blessing. Its passive effect possesses extremely strong purification and soothing special effects against negative statuses, mental manipulation, and energy pollution. You can try to import this blessing power into the target's core through the existing energy link Wood Dragon Root. It can temporarily suppress the dominance effect of the Starving One skill, allowing the underlying consciousness to gain brief control. Charlotte. If you had such a useful skill, why didn't you say so earlier? Charlotte almost couldn't maintain his composure, complaining to the Dominator in his mind. Just now, there was analysis and soul-searching, making it so complicated, but the simplest and most effective method was actually within himself. Notification. You did not inquire about the application method of the inherent skill. This skill prioritizes executing your direct or indirect commands and analysis requests, the Dominator responded in an emotionless tone. Charlotte. Next time, can you please tell me such important things earlier? Although he was complaining, this was undoubtedly good news. No sooner said than done. Charlotte immediately guided the vast and peaceful primordial power of the true dragon within him. A faint golden glow began to flow around him, emitting a refreshing and calming aura. He manipulated the emerald root that had pierced the boar-headed demon king's head. Carefully guiding this power of the true dragon's blessing, like a trickling stream, into the opponent's chaotic sea of consciousness. Roar. The boar-headed demon king's fierce struggles and roars suddenly paused. The warm, orderly, and life-filled dragon race's blessing power flowed in like a clear spring. Beginning a fierce conflict with the chaotic energy representing endless hunger and devouring. However, the rank of the blessing power was clearly higher. It did not forcibly destroy the starving one skill. Instead, like a gentle net, it temporarily enveloped, isolated, and suppressed it. The madness and hunger in the boar-headed demon king's scarlet eyes receded at a visible speed. Replaced by a violent confusion, pain, and finally, a hint of long-lost clarity and rationality emerged. Its massive body stopped struggling, staring blankly at the wood dragon wrapped around it. Then lowered its head to look at its own grotesque hands. Finally, its gaze fell upon Charlotte, who was floating in front, emitting a soft golden light. Forgotten memories surged into its mind like a tide. Desert, tribesmen, crewmate, naming, endless hunger, devouring, destruction, countless tragedies caused by itself. Ah! A hoarse, broken, yet no longer bestial sound was squeezed out of its throat with difficulty. Its huge body began to tremble slightly, and its now clear eyes were filled with boundless pain, regret, and despair. It slowly lowered its head, its massive body seemingly losing all strength, as if even the wood dragon's restraint was no longer needed. Kill me. It raised its head, looking at Charlotte with eyes full of pleading and relief. My sins are too deep. Only death can atone, please. It gave up all resistance, only wishing for death. However, Charlotte dispersed the wood dragon and slowly descended before it, his golden dragon eyes gazing at it calmly yet firmly. Death. Charlotte's voice was calm and carried an undeniable power, as firm as a rock. That is not liberation, that is merely the most selfish escape. Do you think closing your eyes can erase the scars you've left? Can it let the lives lost because of you rest in peace? Can it make your inner guilt disappear? The boar-headed demon King Krut's massive body trembled violently. Live. Charlotte's tone was steady and resolute. Open your eyes, see clearly the path you once walked, remember every pain and loss. Then, straighten your back, use your hands, use every moment of your future existence, to repair, to build, to protect. True responsibility is not atoning with death, but having the courage to face your mistakes and make amends with action. Even if it takes an entire lifetime. This is the greatest comfort to the deceased, and the minimum respect for your own life. The boar-headed demon King Krut's massive body trembled violently as if struck by an invisible heavy hammer. The emptiness left after the madness receded from his scarlet pupils, which had just regained clarity, was instantly filled by Charlotte's words. That was not forgiveness, but a path far heavier and more difficult than death. It was silent for a long time, its heavy breathing particularly clear on the silent battlefield. Finally, it raised its head, its gaze no longer wandering, but fixed firmly on Charlotte. In those eyes that once only reflected hunger and destruction, now surged boundless regret, and a newfound, firm determination. Its voice was still hoarse. You are right. It slowly spoke. Death is too easy. It is not a fitting end for sins such as mine. Its huge hands slowly clenched, its knuckles cracking. This life, from this moment on, no longer belongs to hunger and instinct. Its gaze was burning, as if flames were blazing deep within its pupils, the flames of repentance, and the flames of resolve. It belongs to atonement. To the path of repayment, that you have pointed out. It once again, deeply and solemnly, bowed its massive head to the scorched earth before Charlotte. Making a promise more profound than submission. I will use my entire life to remember, and all my strength to make amends. Until my last ounce of strength is spent, until this land, perhaps one day, is willing to slightly forgive my sins. Thank you. Its voice was low and powerful. For not abandoning my ugly body and filthy soul. Thank you for giving me a chance, to truly call, atonement. The boar-headed demon King Krut, submitted here. Looking at Krut, who was prostrate on the ground, determined to atone but still subtly tormented by the instinct of, the starving one. Charlotte knew that temporary suppression was not a long-term solution. By naming it, a deep magic corridor and soul bond can be established with the target individual. This connection can greatly enhance the effect of the true dragon's blessing, allowing its purifying and soothing power to permanently reside in the target's core. Gradually assimilating rather than suppressing, the starving one, ultimately achieving balance or even control. Naming. Charlotte pondered for a moment, then nodded. This was indeed one of the most fundamental and powerful connections in this world. He looked at Krut. Crut, I acknowledge your determination to atone. However, the starving one, within you is still a major hidden danger. I will bestow upon you a new name, and with my power, build a new foundation for you. To help you truly control this power, rather than be controlled by it. Are you willing? Crut raised his head, his eyes filled with gratitude and resolve. Whatever the method, as long as it allows me to no longer be lost to hunger. And allows me to fulfill my vow of atonement, I am willing to accept. Please bestow a name. Abandon your old name, embrace new life, from now on you shall be called Gerudo. Roar. Gerudo let out a roar completely different from before. The sound had less madness and pain, and more richness and power. The immense magic essence brought by the naming and the continuous effect of the true dragon's blessing triggered the second evolution of its life. Its body grew further, becoming more majestic and well-proportioned. Its skin color shifted from dark brown towards dark gold. The pair of huge demon king horns on its forehead became more regular and imposing, even subtly shimmering with golden light. The cloak on its body, composed of magic essence, moved without wind, its edges seemingly inlaid with a faint golden trim. The huge cleaver and round shield in its hands were also renewed under the immersion of magic essence. Dragon scale-like patterns appeared on the blade, and a simplified dragon head pattern emerged in the center of the shield. Most importantly, its scarlet pupils, though still sharp, completely shed their chaos and hunger. Becoming steady, resolute, and filled with the light of reason. The boar-headed demon king, having received the new name Gerudo and completed its evolution. Feeling the unprecedented clarity and controlled power within its body, did not hesitate at all. It raised its head and let out a long and majestic roar. This roar no longer contained endless hunger, but carried a king's command and a will of liberation. Like a chain reaction, the remaining nearly 150,000 dazed hobgoblin tribe army on the battlefield, only knowing how to devour, suddenly paused as if invisible strings had been cut, their movements abruptly halting. The scarlet light of madness in their eyes gradually receded, revealing expressions of bewilderment and confusion. The compulsory domination of the starving one was actively lifted by their king, Gerudo. The great disaster plaguing the Juru Great Forest, at this point, finally saw the dawn of its end. However, at this moment, Charlotte, floating in the air, heard the Dominator's final and most important prompt in his mind. Notification. Accumulated demon beast soul energy has exceeded the threshold of 100,000 units. 100,000 units of demon beast soul energy have been converted and purified, obtaining 10,000 units of standard evolution soul energy. Demon Lord awakening requirements met. Beginning the evolution from Demon Lord species to Awakened Demon Lord. The evolution process will consume a large amount of magic essence, and the individual will enter a forced dormant state to complete the leap in life level. Wait, now I have to. Before Charlotte could finish speaking, an irresistible deep drowsiness surged over him like a tide. His vision went black, and the surging magic essence around him instantly retracted and condensed, enveloping his body, causing him to fall directly from the sky. Lord Charlotte. The people below exclaimed. Charlotte. Rimuru exclaimed, reacting extremely quickly. His round body shot up instantly. He precisely caught Charlotte, who had reverted to her dragon form and fallen into a deep sleep, with his soft, bouncy, gelatinous body. Charlotte-kun. What's wrong? Rimuru called out anxiously. Sensing that Charlotte's aura, though steady, was as deep as the sea, he couldn't help but panic. Notice. The existence value of individual, Charlotte, is rapidly increasing. Her life level is undergoing an essential leap. She has entered a mandatory dormant state of evolution from Demon Lord species to Awakened Demon Lord. This process is not dangerous, it is an inevitable part of evolution. The great sage's calm prompt echoed in Rimuru's mind, finally allowing his heavily suspended heart to settle. So it's evolution. You scared me to death. Rimuru let out a long sigh, transformed back into his human form, and carefully held the sleeping Charlotte securely. Honestly, you always make me worry at times like this. Just then, a solemn, cold prompt sound simultaneously rang out in the minds of all monsters who had established a soul corridor with Charlotte. This included Rimuru, Beldora, whose hand paused slightly from playing chess with Ifrit, Gurren, Korin, and Gerudo. Proclamation. Individual, Charlotte Tempest, has begun her final awakening. Upon her successful awakening, all monsters under her soul lineage shall receive the true Demon Lord's blessing. This sudden voice of the world shocked all the monsters who received the message. This meant that they would all follow in the footsteps of Lord Charlotte and gain even greater power. Rimuru also felt the premonition of this blessing, but he was more concerned with the mess in front of him. Holding the sleeping Charlotte, he said to Gurren and the others, "Charlotte needs rest. We must deal with the matters here first." Several days later, in the Lizardmen Council Hall, Rimuru sat at the head of the table, with Gurren, Soe, and Hakuro seated on either side. The Lizardmen chief and Gerudo sat opposite them at the round table, with Gabiru standing behind his father. Gerudo's massive body, even when he tried to shrink it, still took up a lot of space. He hung his head, and the atmosphere was heavy. Rimuru broke the silence and looked at Gerudo. "First, Gerudo. Regarding everything you and your tribe have done, do you have anything to say?" Gerudo stood up and deeply bowed his head towards the Lizardmen chief, Gurren, and Rimuru, his voice heavy and full of remorse. "I offer my deepest apologies for all the destruction and casualties my army caused here. All sins stem from my manipulated will and incompetence. I am willing to bear all punishment without complaint. If there is to be an execution, please judge me alone. If there is to be an execution, please judge me alone. What about you all?" The Lizardmen chief looked at the boar-headed Demon King, whose aura far surpassed his own yet was bowing in apology, and remained silent for a moment. He slowly began to speak. "In the monster world, it's eat or be eaten, there's no right or wrong. The casualties from the war were due to our own lack of strength. Now, the mastermind who controlled you has been vanquished, and you have received Lord Charlotte's recognition and salvation. Since Lord Charlotte acknowledges you, and you have shown sincerity in atoning, then let the past matters be put aside for now. The Wetlands Lizardmen are willing to accept you as a companion to live here together." Gurren also crossed his arms and said indifferently, "HMPH, a defeated general doesn't speak of bravery. Since Lord Charlotte has given you a new name and path, our ogre tribe will no longer pursue past matters. From now on, prove your resolve with your actions." Upon hearing this, Gerudo's massive body trembled slightly, his gratitude overflowing. "Thank you for your benevolence, all of you. I, Gerudo, will not fail Lord Charlotte and your generosity." However, as the meeting progressed, someone finally noticed Charlotte, who was carefully placed by Rimuru on a soft cushion, still in her dragon form and deep in slumber. They couldn't help but ask curiously, "Lord Rimuru, what's wrong with Lord Charlotte?" Rimuru knew he couldn't keep it a secret, so he simply explained. "Charlotte had an epiphany during the previous battle, and her power is in a critical breakthrough stage, so she fell into a deep sleep to evolve. When he wakes up, he should become even stronger." Evolution. The Lizardmen chief was stunned, recalling the terrifying power Charlotte had displayed earlier. Such a powerful being could evolve again. With Lord Charlotte's strength, if he evolves again, he might become an existence comparable to a demon lord. The Lizardmen king said gravely. "Demon. Demon lord." The word exploded like thunder in the meeting room. All the unsuspecting attendees looked in horror at the sleeping dragon, their faces filled with shock and awe. Just then, a somewhat discordant voice cautiously spoke up, tinged with a hint of fear. Then, when Lord Charlotte wakes up, after gaining such terrifying power, will he lose control?" The moment the words fell, Gurren's eyes instantly became sharp as blades, and his karmic flames flared up with a whoosh. The powerful pressure almost suffocated the speaker. "Presumptuous." Gurren's voice was cold and filled with undeniable authority. "Lord Charlotte's heart is benevolent and vast, he treats us like his people and saves us from danger. His power will only be used for protection, and there is absolutely no possibility of losing control. If you dare to speak such nonsense again, don't blame me for disregarding our alliance." The powerful ogre aura enveloped the entire room, instantly making everyone's hearts tremble, and the tiny bit of doubt was immediately suppressed. Rimuru looked at Gurren, who was defending Charlotte, and secretly praised him. "Well done, Gurren." He took over the conversation, his tone calm but weighty. "Gurren is right. What we need to discuss is not such baseless worries. But how to practically solve the current problems, how to settle our compatriots, and how to rebuild our homes. This is the best support for Charlotte. The biggest problem now is, how do we settle the 150,000 hobgoblin tribe, no, orc compatriots? He looked at the sleeping Charlotte in his arms and felt a headache coming on. The number is too vast. Food supply and residential planning are huge challenges. The meeting fell silent. This was indeed a thorny problem. Just then, a verdant light flickered, and Treant Trainee's figure quietly appeared in the meeting room. She bowed slightly to everyone, her voice ethereal and wise. Esteemed sirs, please forgive my abrupt interruption. Perhaps, the current crisis is an opportunity. Now that the Juru Great Forest has suffered this calamity, everything is in ruins and needs to be rebuilt, requiring the unity of all forces. The orcs possess unparalleled labor, while the lizardmen tribe excels at fishing. Why not seize this opportunity to establish a Juru Great Forest Alliance? Her gaze swept over everyone as she continued. The orcs will provide labor, responsible for forest reconstruction, reclamation, road building, and other projects. The lizardmen tribe will expand food production to supply the alliance's needs. And Lord Rimuru and Lord Charlotte's village will provide powerful military protection, technology, and core coordination. In this way, not only can survival issues be resolved, but the forest can also become stronger, jointly resisting any future threats. Trainee smiled and looked at Rimuru. As for the position of alliance leader, it should naturally be held by Lord Rimuru, who proposed this and possesses great strength, or by Lord Charlotte upon his awakening. The lizardmen chief pondered for a moment, then nodded heavily. That's excellent. It can resolve conflicts and lead to mutual benefit and win-win results. We, the Wetlands lizardmen, agree to join the alliance. Gerudo was even more grateful. Our tribe is willing to contribute all its strength to the alliance, as the first step towards atonement and establishing our position. Gurren, representing the Ogre tribe, said, the Ogre tribe already belongs to Lord Charlotte and Lord Rimuru. Rimuru also stated, there's no reason to refuse. Trainee's face showed a relieved smile. Then, the Jura Great Forest Alliance is officially established. May the forest's blessings be with you all forever. The establishment of the Jura Great Forest Alliance provided direction for handling the massive population of hobgoblins. However, the specific resettlement work remained complex and multifaceted. Looking at the endless 150,000 orcs, Rimuru felt a great sense of responsibility. One village was clearly insufficient to accommodate and effectively manage such a large population. Establishing a nation, indeed, it's necessary now. Rimuru mused inwardly, but this idea was far-reaching. He decided to discuss it in detail with Charlotte after he woke up. Rimuru said to Gerudo and the lizardmen chief. The immediate priority is to restore production and order in the wetlands. I've decided to let 10,000 orcs remain in the wetlands. They will assist the lizardmen in rebuilding their homes, reinforcing defenses, and learning fishing and wetland farming. In return, the lizardmen tribe must provide them with necessary food and guidance. In the following days, Rimuru held a lengthy naming ceremony on the open ground outside the lizardmen village. Rimuru individually named the 10,000 orcs. Rimuru looked at the son Gerudo had brought. Krut, Rimuru said. He decided to let this young man inherit his father's original name, symbolizing the inheritance of responsibility. Your father will bear more important responsibilities. These 10,000 compatriots, and the task of assisting the lizardmen tribe in rebuilding their homes, I entrust to you to lead. Don't disappoint my expectations. Yes, Lord Rimuru. Krut knelt on one knee, his voice deep and firm. After being named, Krut was enveloped in a flash of light. The evolved Krut became even more burly and strong. However, his newly formed eyes gleamed with a calm and gentle light, completely different from his fierce appearance. Inside the castle hall of Demon King Clayman, the light was dim. Only the dancing flames in the fireplace stretched the two shadows, casting them onto the cold stone walls. The air was filled with the rich aroma of aged wine and a meticulously calculated stillness. Clayman wore an impeccably tailored tuxedo, looking like a noble about to attend a grand banquet. He elegantly swirled the goblet in his hand, the deep red wine tracing a perfect arc along the glass. A smile of complete control lingered at the corner of his mouth, yet his gaze did not fall upon the guest before him. but seemed to pierce the wall, staring into the distance at the intricate game he had meticulously woven. Opposite him stood Laplace, starkly out of place in this elegant setting. He wore a bizarrely patched, oddly styled outfit. The signature clown mask on his face concealed every genuine expression, only a flippant tone leaking through the mask. Krumit is truly a useless sack, offering such great help yet still failing. Laplace spread his hands, his tone tinged with mockery, as if recounting a matter of no concern to him. The man elegantly swirled his goblet, taking a gentle sip. The wine's fragrance lingered on his palate. He died before he could leak any intel, no matter. Clayman's voice was calm and unruffled. To him, a demon king's death was no different from a chess piece's disappearance. It's not wrong, but we've poured so much effort into raising a demon king. Only to have it snatched by a monster we've never seen, it really infuriates me. Clayman refocused his gaze, looking at Laplace with indulgent tolerance. I will make him pay, no one can thwart our grand plan. His tone was gentle, yet the words were icy and cutting. Unfortunately, if you were willing to become the Demon King, there wouldn't be so many obstacles. Clayman added with a half smile, half scoff, as if teasing yet conducting a silent test. Laplace quickly waved his hand back a step, his tone growing even more flamboyant. I can't. Being a Demon King is too troublesome. Demon Kings are all dangerous. Moreover, that meddling monster and the slime beside it both possess the strength to challenge the pig-headed emperor. He deliberately emphasized their strength, as if warning Clayman not to underestimate them. No need to worry. Clayman let out a light laugh, a faint glimmer flashing in his eyes. I will turn them into my puppets to repay the debt. He seemed to already envision that splendid scene. By the way, would you like to see this? Laplace, as if recalling something, produced a memory crystal ball as if performing a trick. He infused a trace of magic, and the crystal ball projected a clear moving image. On the screen, magic essence surged overwhelmingly. Several powerful monsters of varied forms, their strength nearing S rank, were crushingly slaughtering the Hobgoblin tribe army. Their attacks were razor-sharp and perfectly coordinated, capable of clearing a vast area in an instant. Most striking was a commander wielding a blade, his flaming red hair flying. His combat stance and the massive demonic aura he exuded unmistakably indicated his identity. A high-rank demon, a phenomenon that appears only once every few centuries in the ogre tribe. Even more alarming was the disciplined army behind him, also radiating an astonishing demonic aura. Though not numbering in the hundreds, its elite quality far surpassed ordinary monster legions. This was the direct cause of the massive collapse of the pig-headed emperor frontline corps they had previously funded, which led to a siege of 300,000 hobgoblin troops that lasted days without success. Clayman's previously relaxed posture tightened slightly as he leaned forward. Watching the image, especially the red-haired demon's figure, his fingertips lightly tapping the goblet's rim. How's that? Impressive, right? Laplace's voice carried a hint of enjoying the spectacle. Yeah, now it's interesting. What shall we do next? His smile grew even broader, yet beneath it churned a rapidly moving scheme of plotting and calculation. Take good care of yourself, best not to provoke them lately, you'll die if you do. I'm off now, if any trouble arises, I'll give you a discount. Laplace tucked away the crystal ball, issuing a flippant warning before turning and striding away. His voice lingered in the hall as he vanished like a phantom into the shadowed corridor. Clayman gave no response, nor did he rise to see him off. He remained in his original posture. His gaze returning to the swirling wine in the cup, as if within that deep red vortex. The reflection of that formidable monster army and the unknown monster lord who disrupted his plan. Only the faint crackle of the hearth and his silent scheming remained in the hall. After dealing with the pigmen tribe, Rimuru's gaze turned to the lizardmen chief, who had also suffered heavy losses in the war. The wisdom and composure the chief displayed during the crisis earned Rimuru's respect. Chief, Rimuru began. You and your people have endured so much in this disaster, and you have shown extraordinary courage. Please allow me to bestow a name upon you. This is both a symbol of our alliance and a recognition of your steadfastness. The lizardmen chief was slightly stunned, then his eyes showed excitement and honor. He knew the significance of being named, it was far from a simple favor. He bowed solemnly. This is the highest honor. No, I shall humbly obey the will of Lord Rimuru. Rimuru thought for a moment and decided on a simple, memorable name that suited his demeanor. Abel. A flash of light passed, and the lizardmen chief Abel's form evolved, his scales became shinier, and his aura grew stronger. Feeling his newfound power, he thanked Rimuru solemnly again. Thank you, Lord Rimuru, for the name. Abel will not fail this name. Just then, Abel seemed to recall something, and a trace of subtle embarrassment appeared on his face, but it was quickly replaced by determination. He earnestly requested, Lord Rimuru, I have one more presumptuous request. My good-for-nothing son, Gabiru, though reckless and foolish, must have matured somewhat after this battle. May I ask for your permission to let him follow you, even if only as a mere grunt, so that he may witness the true demeanor of a strong leader and gain experience. Oh, that idiot. Rimuru remembered Gabiru. Although he had caused a lot of trouble, he wasn't inherently bad, and he had performed quite well in this recent operation. He smiled and readily agreed. You may. Gabiru, who had been waiting nervously nearby, heard Rimuru's personal approval, and was overjoyed internally. However, he tried hard to emulate the composure of his father and Benimaru, kneeling on one knee, and responded in what he believed was the most solemn tone. Lord Rimuru. For such a kindness, we are eternally grateful. We shall surely do our utmost not to betray your expectations. Oh. Success. I knew Lord Rimuru had good judgment. His three loyal subordinates, who possessed uniquely strange thought processes, immediately rushed forward at the opportune moment. As expected of Lord Gabiru. To gain Lord Rimuru's favor so easily. Indeed, only someone as brilliant and mighty as Lord Gabiru could earn the admiration of a true powerhouse. Lord Gabiru has achieved yet another step on the path of the strong. Gabiru was so flattered he started floating on air, and his chin unconsciously lifted a few degrees. But suddenly remembering something, he looked at the three subordinates who had always followed him, and a wave of loyalty swelled in his heart. He requested Rimuru again. Lord Rimuru. My subordinates, my three subordinates. May they be permitted to continue following me? Rimuru nodded. That's fine. Since they are your subordinates, they can come along too. Oh. Gabiru's three subordinates were instantly moved to tears. They immediately surrounded Gabiru, babbling incoherently with excitement. Lord Gabiru. You actually remembered us at a time like this. As expected of Lord Gabiru. Never forgetting his subordinates. Such magnanimity is unparalleled in the world. We swear to follow Lord Gabiru until death. We will go through fire and water without hesitation. The more they spoke, the more excited they became, until finally, the three of them hugged each other and burst into loud sobs. Then, with sudden, perfect coordination, they hoisted Gabiru, who was still trying to maintain his composure, high above their heads, and began tossing him into the air repeatedly, accompanied by rhythmic, fervent shouts that echoed through the conference room. Gabiru! 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 Just then, a cool, slightly exasperated female voice rang out. Big brother, and everyone else, please stop. A tall female lizardman walked out, whose scales were an elegant pale blue, and whose demeanor was clearly much more composed than Gabiru's. Her golden vertical pupils were calm and wise, and her posture was agile yet elegant. Behind her followed a small squad of solemn-looking lizardmen retainers. She was Gabiru's younger sister, the Lizardmen King's princess. She first performed an elegant bow toward Rimuru, her voice clear and sincere. Respected Lord Rimuru, I am Gabiru's younger sister. Having witnessed the great power of you and Lord Charlotte, as well as the might of the army led by you and Lord Charlotte, I humbly request permission for us to also join your banner, and contribute our strength to the alliance and the future nation. Rimuru naturally had no reason to refuse. Of course, you are welcome. A joyful smile appeared on the princess's face. Thank you, Lord Rimuru. Seeing this, Gabiru immediately puffed out his chest again and said proudly, Oh, my dear sister. You've finally realized the correctness of your older brother's choice and decided to follow my footsteps. Don't worry, your brother will look aft. Before he could finish, his sister interrupted him with a look usually reserved for idiots. Big brother, please be realistic. I chose to join Lord Rimuru's forces to learn true knowledge and power and realize my own worth. It has no direct relation to you. Please refrain from making such misleading statements in the future. Gabiru instantly turned to stone, as if he could hear the sound of his heart shattering. His subordinates quickly gathered around him. Lord Gabiru. Her Highness the Princess is just shy. That's right, Lord Gabiru. She must be proud of you deep down. Afterward, Rimuru discussed a series of post-war matters with everyone. Including settling the wounded, taking inventory of spoils, planning the integration of new members into the Rimuru Tempest Federation, and strengthening territory defense. After the meeting concluded in a friendly and practical atmosphere, Rimuru took the main force and, along with the newly joined companions, set off on the journey back to the Rimuru Tempest Federation. Riding on Ranga's back, Rimuru walked and lamented. The village needs to be expanded again. That Charlotte always finds things for me to do. I'm going to be very busy for a while. I just hope Xian's cooking skills have improved a little. A few days after returning to the Rimuru Tempest Federation village, vibrant vitality immediately replaced the battlefield's grimness. The monsters began their new day of work. Some goblins, led by the dwarf craftsmen, were busy repairing houses with clanging sounds. Some wolf cavalry squads were routinely patrolling the streets. While the industrious orcs were diligently learning new tasks in the assigned fields and workshops. Washing away their past sins with sweat and integrating into this new home. In the newly constructed, magnificent conference building's top-floor meeting room. Rimuru was sitting in the main seat, looking with satisfaction through the bright glass window at the harmonious and prosperous scene outside. Warm sunlight bathed the village, and the faint laughter of small monsters drifted in. Causing his gaze to soften as he softly sighed, "Peace is truly wonderful." Rigurd, the administrator standing by, heard this and responded with an elegant bow. "As you say, Lord Rimuru. To bask in such peace is our greatest happiness." Rimuru turned his head to look at his reliable assistant, who was always diligent, and praised him sincerely. "Speaking of which, everything in the village while we were away was thanks to you. Rigurd, you managed the village well for us. Thank you for your hard work." Rigurd bowed deeply again, his tone filled with respect and loyalty. "You overestimate me, Lord Rimuru. It is my honor and duty to share your concerns and properly manage the home entrusted to me by you and Lord Charlotte." At that moment, standing on Rimuru's other side, was an ogre woman, tall, wearing glasses, and clad in a tight black suit that outlined her astonishing assets. Paired with black trousers, radiating an intellectual aura, Xian. She also nodded slightly, a flash of approval crossing her glasses. Incidentally, Xian hoped to stay by Rimuru's side to help. And seeing her pitiful, desperate pleading, Rimuru reluctantly appointed her as his secretary. Watching the orcs diligently working for their new home outside the window, Rimuru suddenly had a flash of inspiration and clapped his hands, proposing. "That's right. To celebrate the victory of this war, and to officially welcome our pigmen tribe brethren into our big family. Let's hold a grand banquet tonight. From now on, everyone will be companions living together. I hope this banquet will allow everyone to integrate better and discard past grievances." Rigurd immediately accepted the order, a smile appearing on his face. "That is a truly wonderful idea, Lord Rimuru. Your subordinate will go and start preparations immediately. We will certainly hold a celebratory banquet that satisfies all residents." Having said that, he turned sharply and left the conference room to coordinate all the arrangements. Xian also adjusted her glasses and said seriously. "I will also fully assist Mr. Rigurd to ensure the banquet proceeds smoothly." Her expression was as serious as ever, as if preparing the banquet were a crucial strategic mission. It's just that for some reason, the monsters busy throughout the village, especially Benimaru and those who had tasted Xian's cooking before. When Xian mentioned the words, banquet, and Xian assisting, they all inexplicably felt a chill run down their spines. When Rimuru heard that Xian was going to participate in the banquet preparations, the terrifying memory of Gobta being subjected to her devilish cuisine instantly flashed through his mind, scaring him into waving his hands quickly, and he came up with a quick-witted excuse. No, Xian, you don't have to. Leave small matters like banquet preparation to Rigurd and the others. You have something much more important. Yes. Extremely important. I need you to help me compile a detailed report of this campaign. Especially the spoils of war list and personnel placement. This report is crucial for my future decision making. Hearing this, a sharp gleam reflected off Xian's glasses, and she was instantly filled with fighting spirit by the important mission. She straightened her back, her assets wobbled slightly, and then she responded with utmost seriousness. Understood, Lord Rimuru. Your subordinate will definitely do her best to present you with the most detailed and perfect report. Having said that, filled with enthusiasm, she turned and strode quickly toward the archives, ready to dedicate herself to the great work of documentation. Rimuru watched her retreating figure, secretly sighed in relief, and wiped away non-existent cold sweat. I finally dodged a bullet. After Xian left, Rimuru continued to look out the window with anticipation, already imagining the lively scene of the banquet that night. A banquet is only fun when there are lots of people. Rimuru walked alone through the bustling streets of the Rimuru Tempest Federation, preparing to visit Charlotte Tempest where she was sleeping. The monster residents on both sides of the road greeted him enthusiastically, their faces beaming with happiness and respect. Lord Rimuru, the weather is lovely today. Thank you for taking us in, Lord Rimuru. Rimuru smiled in response, enjoying this warm daily life. Just then, Rigard and Hakuro approached, their expressions grim and their demeanor hurried. As if enveloped by a low-pressure zone. Lord Rimuru. Rigard spoke first, a hint of anxiety in his tone. Have you seen that boy Gobta? Rimuru shook his head. No, what happened? Sigh. Rigard slapped his thigh in annoyance. That boy. He said he was going on patrol, but now he's probably slacking off somewhere. Really, it's always like this. Although Hakuro didn't speak, his gloomy face, narrowed eyes, and the faint, sword aura around him fully expressed his desire for instruction. Rimuru let out two dry laughs, silently mourning Gobta for a second. Ahaha, just give him a good lecture once you find him. After bidding farewell to the two, Rimuru arrived at the place where Charlotte Tempest was sleeping. Her small blue dragon body was coiled on a specially made soft mat, her breathing steady and long, as if she had merely fallen into a sweet dream. Rimuru watched quietly for a while, then softly said, Rest well, Charlotte Tempest. Everything is fine in the village, everyone misses you. After a brief stay, he quietly left. Outside, the monsters were diligently working. With their selfless contributions to the village's development, time quickly moved to night. The central plaza was brightly lit, arranged as a grand banquet venue. Long tables were laden with delicious dishes prepared by skilled goblin chefs and assisted by the pigmen tribe. Rimuru strictly ensured Xian did not approach the kitchen by half a step. The aroma of roasted meat filled the air, and the ale foamed richly on the tables. The monsters who had been busy all day. Goblins, mad storm fang wolves, ogres, lizardmen, and orcs, all gathered here, their faces filled with anticipation and joy. Rimuru ascended the temporary main stage at the front of the plaza and cleared his throat. The noisy plaza instantly fell silent, all eyes fixed on him. Everyone. Rimuru's voice clearly carried across the plaza. First, let's celebrate our shared victory in the war. Thank you for your hard work. A burst of enthusiastic cheers immediately erupted from below the stage. Secondly, and more importantly, he continued, his gaze sweeping over the slightly nervous orcs. Let us give the warmest applause to welcome our brothers from the Pigmen tribe, who officially become members of our Rimuru Tempest Federation starting today. Let bygones be bygones. From now on, we are family and companions who share joys and sorrows, supporting each other. May this banquet be the beginning of our friendship. Oh! Even louder cheers and applause echoed through the sky. The orcs felt this sincere acceptance, and many were moved to tears. Then, Rimuru smiled, raising his wine glass high. Let the banquet begin. Eat, drink, and have fun. But no getting too drunk and causing trouble. To Lord Rimuru. To Lady Charlotte Tempest. To the Rimuru Tempest Federation. Cheers. The feast officially began. Joyful laughter, boisterous chatter, and wonderful music instantly engulfed the plaza. And the entire Rimuru Tempest Federation was immersed in an ocean of happiness. Rimuru also jumped off the stage and blended in with everyone, enjoying this hard-won peace and festivity. The lively atmosphere of the banquet permeated the central plaza of the Rimuru Tempest Federation. Gurren and his son Benimaru sat together, the father and son rarely shedding their usual seriousness. They were drinking heartily, the clinking of glasses mixed with hearty laughter, discussing battles and future prospects. Benimaru, seeing you stand on your own, leading your people bravely in battle, fills your father with deep satisfaction. Gurren's voice was even louder due to the alcohol, and a proud light flickered in his golden eyes. Benimaru, though still maintaining some composure, also flushed from the alcohol and his father's praise. He responded respectfully with a hint of excitement. It is all due to father's excellent guidance, and the strength and home that Lord Rimuru and Lady Charlotte Tempest have given us. From now on, I will work even harder and never tarnish your prestige. Good. Well said. Ha ha ha. Drink. Gurren laughed and drank it all, and Benimaru followed suit, the atmosphere between father and son harmonious and lively. A little further away, on the rooftops and high places, Korin and Soe were like two silent and reliable guardian shadows. Korin's wolf ears twitched slightly, scanning the distance. Soe calmly overlooked the entire scene. They didn't talk much, but there was an invisible understanding between them. One visible, one hidden, jointly guarding against potential external enemies. And also deterring anyone who might be foolish enough to cause trouble in such a festive occasion, together weaving a network of safety. And at the edge of the plaza, behind the shadow of a large tree, the lizardmen princess was quietly peering out. She gazed at the two tall and powerful figures high up, especially the calm and composed ogre executive. A hint of imperceptible admiration and curiosity in her eyes, before she quickly retreated behind the tree, as if it were just a casual glance. Rimuru, meanwhile, was surrounded by the lively crowd. He, the dwarf forging master Kaijin, and Kaijin's three dwarf brothers. The gentle Grohl, the somewhat silent Dold, and the youngest, Milt, were sitting together, happily raising their cups and drinking, exchanging forging tips and anecdotes. Ha ha. Master Rimuru, this was truly a great victory. Come, to victory, cheers. Kaijin's voice was booming, his face flushed red as he raised his large wooden cup. Cheers. Rimuru also happily raised his relatively smaller cup and clinked it with everyone else's. After a few drinks, the conversation became more relaxed. Kaijin leaned closer to Rimuru, lowering his voice a bit, a knowing, slightly mischievous smile on his face. Speaking of which, Master, I heard from a merchant from Dworgen a few days ago that a new tavern run by elves has opened there. Oh, an elf tavern. Rimuru's ears perked up instantly. A certain instinct from his previous life as a modern Japanese office worker was activated, and his eyes lit up slightly. That's right, that's right. Kaijin chuckled, gesturing with his hands. I heard that the elf sisters who serve guests there are beautiful and gentle. Ha ha ha. How about it, Master, next time you're free, shall we go, investigate, together? This sounds pretty good. Rimuru couldn't help but show an interested smile, unconsciously rubbing his hands. And exchanged a, look with Kaijin. Grohl next to them also let out a hearty laugh of understanding. Dole didn't speak but the corners of his mouth turned up slightly, and Milt scratched his head a little shyly. He. The men and one slime all let out an inexplicable, slightly, lewd, harmonious laughter. As if they had reached some kind of consensus. Before the laughter died down, Kaijin remembered something else and continued. Oh, and Master, do you know? There's also an interesting anecdote from Dworgen recently. A young dwarf got into a spat with a giant earthworm monster in a burrow, insisting that the earthworm had stolen his private stash of fine wine. As a result, he chased the earthworm through the burrow, digging all the way from the east side of the city to the west, almost loosening a section of the city wall's foundation. Now everyone there calls him the Digging Vinegar King, ha ha ha. Something like that happened. That's some serious obsession. For wine, he'd even abandoned the city wall. Ha ha ha, we dwarves are most obsessed with two things, one is forging, and the other is fine wine. Kaijin slapped his thigh and laughed. But that kid later got hung up and beaten by his old man, and had to fill in the burrow himself, so he learned his lesson. Just as Rimuru and the dwarves were laughing heartily at these anecdotes. Lord Rimuru, please try this. Shion appeared beside Rimuru again at some point, her face displaying an almost devoutly serious expression. picking up a carefully selected piece of food with chopsticks, attempting to feed it to Rimuru. Rimuru smiled and responded to his enthusiastic secretary, taking the food, while inwardly once again feeling grateful that he hadn't let her near the kitchen. The massive Ranga lay obediently at Rimuru's feet, his fluffy tail wagging happily from side to side. Occasionally rubbing his big head against Rimuru, letting out contented purrs. Just then, Shuna approached with light steps, carrying a plate of freshly made desserts that exuded an enticing aroma and exquisite luster. She looked at Rimuru, who was surrounded, and her eyes narrowed into an incredibly gentle smile. Lord Rimuru, these are new desserts I've tried to make. I hope you like them. Below the stage, the atmosphere grew even more boisterous. Someone started it, and Gobta, surrounded by his goblin brothers and their whistles, blushed but excitedly jumped to the center of the stage. Everyone, watch this, he shouted, actually lifting his simple shirt on the spot to reveal his round belly. Then clapped his hands on his belly, wiggled his waist, and performed a belly dance with a strange but strangely catchy rhythm. His comical yet dedicated performance immediately drew thunderous laughter and cheers from the entire audience. His good brothers laughed so hard they almost fell over, frantically applauding and cheering for him. As soon as this performance ended, Gabiru, not to be outdone, leapt out. He somehow acquired several burning torches and began to perform clumsy yet very energetic torch juggling. Wahahaha. Witness this. This is the magnificent skill of Lord Gabiru. This shining light is a reflection of my future. He fumbled to catch the torches that occasionally almost fell to the ground, while still not forgetting to toss his lustrous hair, and declare loudly. His loyal lizardmen subordinates surrounded him, shouting themselves hoarse like the most fervent fans. Long live Lord Gabiru! Amazing! Lord Gabiru! This is our leader! How dazzling! Although the performance looked extremely dangerous mainly for the audience's sake, this lively and humorous spirit perfectly blended into the banquet atmosphere, once again drawing waves of laughter and applause. Monsters of different races, such as the Pigmen tribe, Goblin tribe, and Ogre tribe, under the catalysis of fine wine, delicious food, and joyful performances, had long since cast aside their initial restraint and barriers, completely mingling together. Gerudo did not participate in the revelry. He stood quietly a little distance away, watching the never-before-seen, secure and happy smiles on the faces of his son and his kin. His massive hand clenched tightly. He silently vowed within his heart that no matter the cost, he would protect this precious sanctuary given to them by Lady Charlotte Tempest and Lord Rimuru. This hard-won peace and warmth. And in the shadow of a huge tree at the edge of the plaza, the beautiful tree Aunt Torna was gazing wistfully at the brightly lit, joyous scene in the plaza, her eyes revealing immense envy and a hint of imperceptible grievance. What a lively banquet, even though I helped, you know. She murmured softly to herself, a slight complaint in her tone. Evidently, Rimuru, immersed in the joy of victory and busyness, had completely forgotten to invite this important ally and friend. She sighed, her figure slowly merging into the tree's shadow. But she couldn't help but turn back to take a few more glances at the joyful light. It was a pleasant afternoon in the Rimuru Tempest Federation, with perfect sunshine and a gentle breeze. Rimuru was leisurely strolling down the newly built commercial street, feeling a sense of contentment as he watched the gradually thriving shops and the bustling monster residence. Just then, a cold voice, without any warning, echoed deep within his mind, and simultaneously in the consciousness of all individuals with a profound soul link to a certain entity. Notification. Individual named Charlotte Tempest's Demon Lord awakening is complete. The true Demon Lord's blessing will now be bestowed. Rimuru, Veldora, Gerudo, Gurren, Korin. Rimuru was slightly startled, then a joyous smile bloomed on his face. Oh my! Charlotte, that guy, finally woke up. However, this joy only lasted for a moment. The next second, he felt an indescribably pure and immense energy surge from the other end of the soul link, sweeping through his entire body instantly. He immediately felt his body undergoing earth-shattering changes. Individual name: Rimuru Tempest, race has evolved to demonic viscous spiritual body. Subsequently, all physical abilities have significantly increased. Magic essence quantity has greatly increased. Unique skill: Predator, has evolved into the Starving One. Unique skill. Great Sage, integrates all remaining blessing energy, requesting evolution. Permission granted. Evolution successful. Unique skill Great Sage, has evolved into ultimate skill, Wisdom King Raphael. Blessing complete. Individual existence value, 800,000. As the voice of the world faded, Rimuru could clearly feel his own power reaching an unprecedented level, especially with the birth of the Wisdom King, which brought a computational power and sense of omnipotence far more profound and immense than the Great Sage. Notification. Individual requires deep synchronization and adaptive dormancy to complete final evolution. This process is irreversible and will begin shortly. Wait. No way. I'm going to sleep. Now. Here. On the street. At least let me find a comfortable bed. Z's. An intense drowsiness, like a tsunami, instantly overwhelmed all his thoughts. He didn't even have time to react properly before his eyelids closed heavily, his body went limp, and he toppled forward. Just as he was about to make intimate contact with the stone pavement, a thick arm caught him just in time and steadily. It was a Hobgoblin tribe member who was moving construction materials nearby. Seeing Lord Rimuru suddenly sway and fall, he dropped the lumber in his hands without thinking and rushed over. Lord Rimuru. What's wrong? The Hobgoblin tribe member cried out in alarm, carefully supporting Rimuru, who had fallen asleep and was now in an infant-like slumber. The commotion here immediately attracted attention. Rigurd, who was leading a patrol nearby, rushed over upon hearing the noise. What happened? Rigurd's face instantly changed when he saw Rimuru, seemingly completely unconscious, cradled in the Hobgoblin tribe member's arms. Lord Rimuru. At this tense moment, Rimuru seemed to use his last shred of subconsciousness, his lips slightly moving, letting out an almost inaudible murmur. I'm fine, just so sleepy, take me back to my room. After speaking, he transformed back into a slime and slept even more soundly in the Hobgoblin tribe member's sturdy arms. Hearing Lord Rimuru himself say he was fine, just sleepy, Rigurd and the surrounding monsters all breathed a sigh of relief. But their worry had not completely dissipated. So he just fell asleep. Rigurd wiped away non-existent cold sweat from his brow. You really scared me. Quick. You, and the rest of you. He immediately instructed the patrol members beside him. Carefully take Lord Rimuru back to his room, and have the guards watch over him. No one is allowed to disturb him. Yes. The patrol members and the Hobgoblin tribe warrior carefully lifted the sweetly sleeping Rimuru, escorting the sleeping slime in their arms towards his residence. Meanwhile, in different corners of the Rimuru Tempest Federation, several other core executives were also undergoing drastic transformations. On the training ground, Gurren, who was sparring with his son Benimaru, suddenly froze mid-punch. At the moment he felt his inner power surge and his race evolve. He widened his golden eyes, only managing to say to Benimaru, I think I'm about to. Before he could finish, his massive body crashed to the ground, raising a cloud of dust, and then thunderous snores erupted. Benimaru stood frozen, looking at his father who had instantly fallen into a deep sleep, unsure how to react. His inherent unique skill, Gurren's protection, under the infusion of the Demon Lord's blessing, underwent a fundamental change in nature, its scale and authority rapidly expanding, ultimately solidifying into a brand new ultimate power embodying concepts of absolute defense and domain control. Unique skill, Gurren's protection, has evolved into ultimate skill King of Fortresses. Individual race has evolved from Ogre to Yoki. Individual existence value, 350,000. On the other side, at the watchtower, Korin, standing against the wind and surveying all directions, suddenly had uncontrolled tiny wind vortices swirling around him. He grunted, trying to steady himself, but the intense drowsiness brought by the evolution made him unable to resist. Finally, he curled up, transforming into a fluffy giant wolf, and fell into a deep sleep, resting his head on his tail. His original unique skill for controlling wind and lightning completely sublimated, evolving into the supreme authority governing the skies. Unique skill has evolved into ultimate skill King of Howling Wind. Individual race has evolved into Wind Demon Wolf. Individual existence value, 150,000. At the construction site, Gerudo, who was silently carrying a huge log, suddenly felt the weight in his hands become as light as nothing, and a massive energy flowed through his entire body. He gently put down the log, and his rough large hand touched his chest, which was filled with warm and peaceful power. A relieved smile appeared on his face, then he leaned against the log and sat there, closing his eyes, like a farmer finally resting after hard labor, letting out steady breaths. The primal power within him, which once brought endless hunger and destruction, had its insane undertones washed away and reshaped by Charlotte's pure demon lord power, transforming into a more controllable, more profound authority of devouring. Unique skill, the Starving One, has evolved into Ultimate Skill King of Hunger. Individual race has evolved from Boar-Headed Demon King to Boar Demon King. Individual existence value 1,200,000. Just as Rimuru felt his own evolution, in the sealed space of his stomach, Veldora was locked in an intense battle with Ifrit, referring to a chess game. When suddenly, a pure and immense energy surged through the dual soul links with Rimuru and Charlotte, pouring into his dragon soul. His inherent skill, Investigator, catalyzed by this true demon lord's blessing, instantly broke through its original shackles, frantically evolving towards a higher dimension. Notification. Unique skill, Investigator, has integrated blessing energy, evolving into Ultimate Skill King of Investigation. Individual existence value 88,880,000. Ku. Ha 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 ha. Veldora was startled at first, then burst into deafening laughter. His massive dragon body excitedly thrashing within the sealed space, scaring Ifrit opposite him. Excellent. Truly excellent. Charlotte, you did well. This blessing, even I feel pleased in body and mind. Kuhahaha. With this, I am one big step closer to completely analyzing this infinite prison. Charlotte slowly opened his brilliant golden eyes, the demon lord awakening officially complete. The grand, cold voice of the world also made its final declaration in his mind. Notification. Individual named Rimuru Tempest is about to complete awakening. The true demon lord's blessing will be bestowed upon all monsters under the soul lineage upon completion of the awakening. All physical abilities significantly increased, complete. Can freely convert between physical body and spiritual body forms, complete. Acquired new inherent skills. Dragon God's Blessing, Infinite Regeneration, Infinite Growth, Omni-Sense, Barrier Creation, Omni-Transformation, Dragon King's Aura, Enhanced Clone, Space Domination, Storm Dragon Summon, Demonic Viscous Spiritual Body Summon. Complete. Physical Attack Nullification, Spiritual Attack Nullification, Natural State Influence Nullification, Pain Nullification, Status Anomaly Nullification, Holy Demonic Attack Resistance. All of the above have been acquired. Next. Unique Skill Dominator begins to ascend to Ultimate Skill. Failed. Evolution process obstructed. Conditions unknown. Detecting strong resonance from homologous but heterogeneous skill engraver. Forced integration beginning. Integration complete. Dominator and engraver merge and sublimate. A power of authority far more profound and complex than a simple evolution of Dominator perfectly integrated into his soul's origin. The ability of engraver, originally used to engrave and preserve non-unique skills and magic that had been seen, combined with Dominator to achieve perfect replication, was integrated into the new ability. Unique Skill Dominator has ascended to Ultimate Skill Primordial King. Individual existence value 48,690,000. Note. Existence value primarily reflects magic essence quantity and basic attributes, not skill effects or combat techniques. Existence value does not represent actual combat power. For example, Veldora's existence value is as high as 80 million, yet he can be instantly killed by his sisters, whose existence values are lower than his. However, Charlotte merely let out a lazy yawn, as if swatting away an insignificant mosquito by his ear, actively ignoring this detailed information. To him, the increase in power was a natural outcome. And what exactly increased or what it was renamed to was entirely irrelevant. This was the arrogance deeply rooted in the essence of dragons, he only cared about the results and his current feelings. What he cared about more now was the lingering, alluring aroma of various modern delicacies from his past life memories in his dreams. Roast meat, pizza, ice cream, hot pot. The more he thought about it, the hungrier he felt. Ah, so hungry. He rubbed his non-existent stomach, lazily using the newly acquired but unnoticed telepathy ability. Directly transmitting his voice to Rigurd, the omnipotent butler busy in his office, as both Rimuru and Charlotte were sleeping. Rigurd tilde come here for a moment. Rigurd. With a slight thought, a clear and calm telepathic message crossed space. It reached the mind of the busy, robust Rigurd. In just a moment, neat and respectful footsteps were heard from outside the door. Rigurd gently pushed the door open. Seeing Charlotte Tempest already awake and sitting safely, a look of genuine joy and respect immediately appeared on his face. He bowed deeply. Lord Charlotte Tempest, congratulations on successfully completing your awakening. It's truly wonderful to see you safe and sound. You've worked hard. Charlotte Tempest nodded casually, then got straight to the point. His tone carried a hint of imperceptible expectation. Rigurd, ask Shuna to prepare some food for me. Make sure there are many varieties and rich flavors. After giving this top priority instruction, he seemed to remember something and added. Oh right, where's Rimuru? Where did that guy run off to? The joy on Rigurd's face slightly receded, replaced by a hint of worry. He respectfully replied. Reporting, Lord Charlotte Tempest, Lord Rimuru, at the moment you completed your awakening. He also seemed to receive a great blessing, but then fell into a deep slumber. Korin and Gerudo also fell into slumber with him. Slumber. Charlotte Tempest raised an eyebrow slightly, a hint of confusion flashing in his golden eyes. Just then, the primordial king in his mind proactively offered an explanation, its voice carrying an elegant tone. Notice, this phenomenon is an inherent process of the true demon lord's blessing. The blessed individual needs to undergo deep dormancy to complete the final adaptation and stabilization of their life form level. This is a benign process, no need to worry. Oh, so that's what it is. Charlotte Tempest gently clapped his hand as if enlightened, that hint of confusion instantly dissipating, and he returned to his lazy demeanor. Let them sleep. It's fine. At this moment, Shuna's meticulously prepared food arrived, spread out lavishly on a table. Charlotte Tempest immediately picked up his utensils, elegantly but not slowly enjoying the meal, while continuing to ask indistinctly. So, what happened while I was asleep? Rigurd stood by, beginning to report in an orderly fashion. Yes. During your and Lord Rimuru's slumber, the following major events occurred. Firstly, the Jura Tempest Federation officially formed the Jura Great Forest Alliance with the Lizardmen tribe, Dryad tribe, and other surrounding races. Secondly, all 150,000 Hobgoblin tribe members led by the former pig-headed emperor have sworn allegiance to our nation, becoming new compatriots. Thirdly, a grand banquet was held a few days ago to celebrate the victory and welcome the new members. Charlotte Tempest's chewing paused. A banquet. Oh, it was incredibly lively. Oh dear, everyone must have had a good time, right? Just thinking about it makes me envious. Indeed, those who are asleep or left unattended, aren't they? They can only be left alone in their rooms, missing out on such a joyous occasion for all. Sigh, Rimuru, too, to not wait for me for such a fun event. That's really not cool, don't you think, Rigurd? He spoke sentence after sentence, his tone drawn out, expressing envy and regret. Yet each word was like a small feather tickling Rigurd, making him restless. Tiny beads of sweat seeped from Rigurd's forehead. He quickly bowed, his voice filled with apology. Be very sorry, Lord Charlotte Tempest. This was our oversight. Please, you must not. Seeing Rigurd's nervous expression, Charlotte Tempest suddenly laughed and waved his hand to interrupt him. I'm just kidding, don't be so tense. Anyway, it was Rimuru's idea, wasn't it? Rigurd finally let out a sigh of relief, silently offering a prayer for the still unconscious Lord Rimuru. After a few simple instructions, Charlotte Tempest dismissed Rigurd to continue his duties. After eating and drinking his fill, satisfying his appetite, a sense of idle laziness once again enveloped his mind and body. He leisurely strolled outside, preparing to enjoy the afternoon sun. The dazzling sun hung high above, pouring light and heat onto the earth. Charlotte Tempest subconsciously looked up and squinted, but suddenly noticed something unusual. He couldn't feel the warmth of the sun, nor the slightest heat. He stopped, carefully observing. A breeze brushed past his hair and cheeks, but he also couldn't feel the flow or coolness of the wind. He extended a finger and forcefully pinched his arm. There was a sensation of pressure, but absolutely no pain. A strange sense of incongruity welled up in his heart. He tried to recall the feeling of cold, the feeling of heat, the feeling of fatigue, but found that these once familiar proofs of being alive now seemed vague and distant, as if separated by an unbreakable transparent wall. This isn't right. Charlotte Tempest frowned slightly, muttering to himself. How can I not feel anything? As if responding to his confusion, the primordial king's voice, with its elegant tone, sounded at the opportune moment. Notice. The individual has acquired absolute resistances such as natural state influence nullification and pain nullification. Conventional external natural environmental changes and physical contact can no longer produce corresponding sensory feedback for the individual. This is a passive state to ensure optimal individual survival. Huh. Charlotte Tempest was stunned. Optimal passive state. Does that mean I won't feel hot or cold, or pain anymore? He scratched his head, not happy at all, but rather showing a hint of distress. Then what's the difference between being alive and being a rock? I have no real sensation anymore. As an individual who essentially retained many human sensory needs. Charlotte Tempest felt very uncomfortable with this absolute safety state. He longed to feel the coolness of the wind on his skin, the warmth of the sun on his body, and even the realness brought by a little pain occasionally. Hey, Primordial King. He tried to give an instruction. Can you turn off this natural state influence nullification? Or at least weaken it. So I can perceive the world normally, like a person. Notice. Strongly advise against performing this operation. Restricting inherent resistances will significantly increase the risk of the individual sustaining damage. Confirm disabling natural state influence nullification and related pain suppression modules. The Primordial King's voice seemed to carry a hint of disapproval and concern. Confirm, confirm. Charlotte Tempest waved his hand impatiently. Hurry up, this little risk is nothing serious. Command confirmed. Beginning to apply restrictions to natural state influence nullification, pain nullification, and other partial resistances. Complete. Almost the instant the notification sound fell. Whoa. Charlotte Tempest suddenly let out a short gasp, almost jumping up. The sunlight, which had been like a gentle backdrop, now seemed to transform into a searing hot iron. Extreme heat furiously burned his skin. The air was no longer void, but turned into viscous, scalding magma. Each breath brought a burning sensation. Just standing on the ground, the temperature emanating from it made him feel as if he were standing on a red-hot iron plate. Even more terrifyingly, the fundamental laws of this world were far stronger than those of his previous life. Merely restoring normal human perception. The environmental pressure he endured far exceeded the limits any ordinary earthling could imagine. In his mind, a huge, blood-red character for death even seemed to appear. It was as if staying for another second would mean being burned to death, or crushed to death, by this normal environment. Turn it off, turn it off, turn it off. Change it back immediately. Now. Charlotte Tempest was scared out of his wits, almost screaming internally. This was not the gentle breeze and warm sunlight he wanted at all. Notice. Resistance restrictions have been restored. That terrifying sensation that almost melted him instantly vanished, and the world reverted to its safe, but insensate state. Charlotte Tempest gasped for air, still shaken, patting his chest with a look of lingering fear. Scared me to death. The normal of this cursed world is too outrageous. At this moment, the Primordial King's voice sounded again, this time with a hint of almost imperceptible helplessness. Suggestion. It is recommended to grant this skill permission for dynamic adjustment of the individual's sensory threshold to an appropriate level based on external environmental intensity. This can both retain some sensory experience and ensure safety. That is, neither too high, nor too low. Authorize. Yes, no. Yes, no. Charlotte Tempest. He was silent for 2 seconds, then almost stomped his foot in anger, yelling at the air, which was actually his skill. You're definitely doing this on purpose, aren't you? Definitely. You scare me first, and then you propose this solution. You sly skill. Silence. The primordial king chose not to comment. HMPH. Charlotte Tempest huffed indignantly, but still grumbled. Yes. Yes. Command confirmed. Permission acquired. Beginning to construct dynamic perception adjustment module. Module construction complete. Perception sensitivity has now been adjusted to the preset, appropriate, level based on the current environment. Almost simultaneously, Charlotte Tempest felt that the wall separating him from the world seemed to thin. Warmth, no longer searing, but truly gentle and comfortable warmth, once again enveloped him. Breeze, softly brushed by, bringing coolness and faint sense of distant flowers and grass. Underfoot, the firm and slightly warm sensation of the earth. A genuine feeling of being alive had finally returned. Although far less intense and vivid than before, it was just right, making him feel comfortable and at ease. Charlotte Tempest ambled through the bustling yet orderly streets. Watching the various monsters busy themselves for their shared homeland, a sense of calm contentment filling his heart. But after a long period of this tranquility, a hint of boredom emerged. Hey, Primordial King, he idly called out in his mind. Answer. At your service, Lord Charlotte. An elegant voice, still bearing its characteristic robotic tone, immediately responded. Nothing special, just feeling a bit too idle. Don't you think life's a little too peaceful these days? He communicated telepathically while kicking small pebbles by the roadside. Analysis. From the perspective of survival optimization, peace is an ideal state. However, from the individual's spiritual needs, appropriate challenges can effectively combat the feeling of boredom. The Primordial King responded. Additionally, a potential issue that may affect the long-term development of the Rimuru Tempest Federation has been detected. Would you like to hear it? Yes, no. Oh, an issue. Charlotte's attention was slightly piqued. Tell me about it. Analysis. Due to the large congregation of high-level monsters and the presence of you and Lord Rimuru. The average concentration of environmental magic essence in the core area of the Rimuru Tempest Federation has risen to 371.5% of its normal level. Oh. So what? Charlotte didn't think this was a big deal. Answer. This concentration is beneficial to monster residents. But for ordinary humans or low magic essence creatures not adapted to magic essence, it will create an extremely strong environmental oppressive feeling. Fragile individuals may experience magic essence poisoning reactions, with a 92.3% probability, and it could even be life-threatening. This situation will greatly hinder any future diplomatic or trade relations with human nations. The Primordial King calmly stated the consequences, as if discussing something unrelated to itself. There's trouble like this. Charlotte stopped, frowning slightly. You mean future human guests might be poisoned by our air before they even enter? That's a bit embarrassing, and not conducive to communication. Analysis. Affirmative. This issue requires resolution. Do you have any good ideas? Charlotte asked, taking the opportunity, as he was too lazy to think about such troublesome matters himself. Answer. Proposed solution. Construct an environmental magic essence dynamic circulation system, covering the entire city. The Primordial King immediately provided the prepared answer. Core measures. Lay out large-scale specialized magic circles or embed magic tools, with the same effect extensively under the city, at building foundations, or at specific nodes. Operating principle. 1. Automatic absorption. The system will automatically absorb excess magic essence overflowing in the environment, maintaining the concentration at a preset threshold safe for low magic essence creatures. 2. Energy conversion. Absorbed magic essence can be efficiently converted to directly supply the city's magical facilities, such as lighting, barriers, workshop power, or injected into the public energy network. 3. Dynamic balance. When the environmental magic essence concentration falls below the safe threshold due to consumption, the magic circles can switch to slowly absorbing magic essence from the outside to replenish internal consumption, forming a self-sufficient internal circulation. 4. Surplus management. If a magic essence surplus that cannot be immediately consumed arises, it can be compressed and stored for future needs. Final effect. Purify the urban environment, making it suitable for the coexistence of all races, while converting overflowing magic essence into sustainable energy. As Charlotte listened to this long string of rigorous and efficient plans, his eyes grew brighter. Oh, oh, oh. This is amazing. He couldn't help but exclaim. I'll discuss it with Rimuru when he wakes up. This is a good thing for the country and its people. I'll leave the blueprints and everything to you then. Analysis. Preliminary design plans have begun to be drafted. Having resolved a major potential problem and even found a new direction for the city's future development, Charlotte's mood became even more pleasant. Just as Charlotte was satisfied with the city's future development plans, the voice of the primordial king sounded again, but this time the content concerned him personally. Report. There is another important matter directly related to the individual. What else? Charlotte asked in a good mood. Analysis. Continuous monitoring shows that the existence value of individual, Charlotte Tempest, has stabilized at over 48 million. This value indicates that the total amount of magic essence contained within your body has become astonishingly vast, far exceeding the amount required for daily maintenance in your current form. Oh, so what? That's a pretty auspicious number. Charlotte didn't pay much attention to these figures. Answer. This means your magic essence is in a continuous, overflowing state. Although racial characteristics prevent self-destruction, excessive magic essence accumulation can cause a discomfort similar to stuffiness. Prolonged exposure to this state may lead to unconscious magic essence leakage, negatively affecting your mental concentration and precision of physical control. It is recommended to regularly and actively perform a large-scale magic essence release to maintain optimal condition. Release magic essence. How do I release it? Like this. Charlotte curiously relaxed his restraint on his magic essence a little. In an instant, an invisible yet heavy, mountain-like pressure silently spread out from him. Even though he only unconsciously leaked an insignificant trace on the surrounding streets, many newly joined, unnamed, busy low-level goblins and orcs instantly fell to their knees as if crushed by a giant boulder, their faces pale and breathing difficult. Their eyes filled with fear and pain, as if they would be crushed by this pure mass in the next second. Charlotte immediately sensed something was wrong and instantly reined in his magic essence completely. Only then did those monsters gasp for breath as if rescued from drowning, looking in Charlotte's direction with lingering fear. Though they didn't understand what had happened, they instinctively felt awe and lingering dread. Analysis. Uncontrolled release will cause catastrophic consequences to the surrounding environment and low-level individuals. Therefore, release must be performed in a controlled or isolated environment. Option 1. Go to an uninhabited barren land far from the town for release. That's too much trouble. As soon as Charlotte heard he had to travel far, his laziness immediately kicked in, his face full of refusal. And it feels silly, like having to go to the wilderness regularly to take care of bodily needs. Isn't there a more elegant and convenient way? Analysis. Retrieving optimal solution. Retrieval complete. Option 2. Seek cooperation. A holder of the unique ultimate skill Labyrinth Lord has been detected worldwide. This authority can create and control a labyrinth, an alternate dimension independent of the world. Report. If permission can be obtained from the holder of Labyrinth Lord, magic essence release can be performed deep within the labyrinth they created. The independent spatial characteristics of the labyrinth can perfectly isolate the massive energy fluctuations generated during release, preventing any impact on the current world. This is the optimal choice for resolving this need. Labyrinth Lord. Labyrinth. A hint of interest flashed in Charlotte's golden eyes. This sounded much more interesting than running off to the wilderness. Sounds like a good place to go. Not only can it solve the problem, but maybe I can also explore and have some fun. Alright, I'll worry about finding this person later. Charlotte waved his hand, temporarily noting the matter down. Although he had a small annoyance, at least there was a solution that sounded less troublesome, and even a little fun. It seems that after Rimuru wakes up, besides building the magic circles, I'll also have to discuss finding this Labyrinth Lord. Maybe I'll meet some interesting people or things. He thought to himself, adding this new, to-do item, to his future plans. As he walked, he saw a familiar figure. He was holding thick blueprints, gesturing at a newly built wall. Directing several goblins and hobgoblin tribe workers. It was Milt, the youngest of the 3 dwarf craftsman brothers brought by Kijin, who seemed to be acting as the chief commander of the construction project. Charlotte had a sudden idea and slowly ambled over. Milt, he called out. Milt, who was intently studying the blueprints, was startled and sharply looked up. Seeing that it was Charlotte, he quickly put down what he was holding and stood respectfully. Then, he simply nodded vigorously, expressing with his eyes a silent inquiry of, "How may I help you?" His personality was the most silent among his brothers, he almost never spoke, communicating entirely through gestures and eye contact. I have an idea I want to discuss with you. Charlotte didn't mind and continued speaking on his own. Discussed with a certain entity, and we feel that the magic essence concentration in the city is too high right now. It might affect communication with other races in the future. So, we plan to create a large-scale magic circle internal circulation system covering the entire city, which can absorb excess magic essence and convert it into energy for use. He briefly described the concept. Milt listened very carefully, nodding frequently as he did. He made sounds of, indicating understanding and agreement. His eyes gleamed with the light of a craftsman hearing an ingenious design. I'll give you the specific design drawings later, we'll need a lot of effort from your dwarf craftsmen, Charlotte added. Milt nodded heavily again, patting his chest to indicate they would handle it. After discussing the main topic, Charlotte looked at the bustling construction site before him. He then looked up at the clear blue sky, and an even grander idea suddenly emerged. Oh, right, he said in a casual tone, as if something had just occurred to him. Once all these foundational nation-building projects are finished, how about we build a palace in the sky? Milt let out a short questioning sound. Following Charlotte's gaze, he also looked up at the sky, a hint of confusion and great curiosity on his face. Yes, exactly, the kind that floats in the air. The more Charlotte spoke, the more brilliant he found the idea, his golden eyes filled with imagination. And we'll add a powerful barrier to hide it, so it's completely undetectable from below. How about it, isn't that interesting? After Milt heard this, he first gasped in shock, mouth agape, and froze for a few seconds. Then, an indescribable, extremely excited gleam burst forth in his eyes. He seemed to have heard the best idea in the world and began nodding frantically. His nodding was astonishingly fast, and he continuously made, sounds. He was so excited that he even started gesticulating wildly with his hands and feet. As if he was already conceiving the massive project of sending a palace into the sky in his mind. Charlotte smiled contentedly, watching the excited Milt. However, he still added a sentence, pulling Milt back from his almost runaway imagination. Of course, there's no rush for this, it's just something I thought of casually. The most important thing right now is to successfully complete the nation-building projects on the ground first. As for a sky palace, we can talk about that later. Upon hearing this, Milt tried to calm his excited feelings, then nodded earnestly and vigorously again, indicating he understood the priorities. Alright, that's it then, you can continue your work. Charlotte finished speaking, then contentedly walked away with his hands behind his back. Continuing his leisurely stroll. Leaving Milt behind, looking up at the sky, his eyes shining, clearly half his thoughts already drifting to how to conquer gravity. This sudden, fantastically colored proposal undoubtedly ignited a flame of challenge and creativity in this silent dwarf craftsman. Charlotte continued to wander aimlessly and unconsciously arrived near the training ground he usually used. Before he even got close, he heard energetic shouts from within, interspersed with the crisp sound of bamboo swords cutting through the air. He approached curiously and saw Hakuro standing with his hands behind his back as always, his figure hunched but as steady as a rock. His eyes were slightly narrowed, as if he were about to fall asleep, holding a thin bamboo sword with one hand, his posture utterly relaxed. Opposite him, led by Gobta, Gobuzu and several other goblins formed a semicircle around him. Each of them looked nervous, as if facing a formidable enemy. Gobta winked at his brothers around him, lowering his voice to encourage his comrades. Everyone. Charge together. Let this old man see the results of our special training. The other goblins, upon hearing this, showed expressions of "Let's do it," with resolute determination, nodding heavily and gripping their bamboo swords. Oh! With Gobta's strange, commanding yell, several goblins simultaneously pounced on Hikuro from different directions. However, in the next instant, whack! Ouch! Whack! Ah! Whack! Pain! Whack! So fast! Several extremely swift and crisp bamboo sword strikes rang out almost simultaneously, accompanied by a series of cries of pain. Gobta, Gobuzu, and the others all stumbled backward, clutching their struck heads. Grimacing in pain, their earlier fearless momentum instantly vanished without a trace. Hikuro had returned to his original spot at some point, still maintaining his posture of holding the sword with one hand, as if he had never moved. He slowly opened his narrowed eyes, looking at the young ones clutching their heads and groaning. A benevolent smile appeared on his face, and he stroked his white beard, but said nothing more. Everything was understood without words. You little rascals, you still have a long way to go. Charlotte, hiding and secretly watching this familiar scene, couldn't help but cover his mouth with his hand, his shoulders trembling slightly as he let out stifled chuckles. He knew this would be the outcome. Seeing Gobta and the others' aggrieved expressions of, "We tried so hard but were still instantly defeated," was truly amusing. He didn't go forward to disturb this daily guidance, but with a joyful mood, quietly turned and left the training ground, leaving Gobta's wails and Hikuro's hidden smile behind him. After bidding farewell to the little interlude at the training ground, Charlotte completely emptied his thoughts. He no longer deliberately sought anything, but simply allowed himself to blend into this thriving monster city. He was like a ghost, or like the most ordinary resident, transforming back into a wandering dragon, aimlessly traversing the crisscrossing streets. The sunlight, precisely adjusted by the primordial king's refined perception, felt just right. A gentle breeze blew past, bringing a mixture of various scents. The fresh scent of new wood, the faint metallic smell from the forging workshop, and the enticing aroma of food wafting from some unknown kitchen. His steps were slow, his golden eyes lazily scanning everything around him. He saw a group of goblins intensely discussing something around the foundation of a new building, gesticulating wildly. Although he couldn't understand the specific content, their focused and passionate demeanor was very interesting. Several ogre beauties sat under the porch of a new residence, chatting and laughing, while sewing something in their hands. Occasionally looking up to call out to the children chasing and playing nearby. Among those children were goblins, little ogres, and even one or two wobbly pigmen tribe younglings, all playing together without any barriers. Passing by Kijin's workshop, he heard rhythmic hammering sounds and the loud voices of Kijin and Kurobi discussing. They seemed to be arguing about some technical issue, but it sounded more like a vibrant exchange. A patrol team, composed of goblin rollers, mad storm fang wolves, and hobgoblin tribe members, walked by. Although the races were vastly different, their steps were surprisingly coordinated. Only the leading wolf cavalry occasionally needed to slow down to wait for their larger but slightly slower hobgoblin tribe companions. The hobgoblin tribe warrior would even scratch his head shyly. In a dark, secluded corner of an alley, he saw Gabaru being lectured by his sister. Gabaru rubbed his head, looking at her with an innocent expression, while she was both exasperated and helpless. Charlotte couldn't help but chuckle secretly, not disturbing them, and quietly walked away. He flew like this, watching monsters of different races working hard for their common life. Watching former enemies now toiling under the same roof. Watching powerful warriors carefully help up weak children who had fallen. Watching every corner of this city filled with vitality and a clumsy but real order. There were no major decisions for him to make, no enemies requiring his power, and no difficult problems requiring much thought. He was simply an observer, experiencing this hard-won peaceful daily life, created by him and Rimuru. And all the residents. He flew to the edge of the plaza, found a bench from which he could see the fountain, the statues of Rimuru and Charlotte, and the passing monsters. He lazily sat cross-legged, slightly narrowing his eyes, enjoying this pure tranquility. He let out an extremely comfortable sound, like a cat basking in the sun. This way, seems pretty good too. Time slowly flowed in this relaxed observation. A few days later, the sun was still shining brightly. Rimuru, Honglian, Korin, Gerudo, and others gradually awoke from their evolutionary slumber. Feeling the surging new power within them, they were all overjoyed. However, on this vibrant morning, the atmosphere in the top-floor conference room of the Rimuru Tempest Federation's impressive conference building was inexplicably somewhat solemn. On both sides of the round table sat the main executives of the Rimuru Tempest Federation. Their expressions were serious, their brows slightly furrowed, and their eyes met as if silently communicating about some major issue concerning the future of the nation. The air was so quiet you could hear a pin drop. Creak. The heavy double doors of the conference room were slowly pushed open. All the monsters' gazes instantly focused on the doorway. Shuna walked in with a solemn expression, her steps steady. In her hands, she carefully held several, brightly colored, uniquely styled, swimsuits. She walked to the end of the long table and solemnly placed the swimsuits on the tabletop. Rigard cleared his throat, his tone extremely serious. Everyone, regarding the upcoming summer festival, the most important agenda item must be decided immediately. What style of swimsuit should Rimuru-sama and Charlotte-sama wear on that day? It's worth mentioning that after Charlotte awoke, her appearance became even more refined under the subtle influence of her monster form. She bore a striking resemblance to Rimuru's human form, like a pair of twin siblings. Both had beautiful blue hair, and their facial contours seemed to be carved from the same mold. The main differences were Charlotte's slightly taller stature and their usual clothing styles. As soon as he finished speaking, a fierce debate immediately erupted. Does this even need discussion? Xian slammed the table and stood up, a sharp glint flashing across her glasses. She first picked up an extremely daring, minimal fabric, black high-cut one-piece swimsuit that highlighted mature charm. Her voice was filled with undeniable enthusiasm. Charlotte-sama's temperament is ethereal and powerful, and her figure is perfect. She should wear such a mature and romantic style to fully display her charm and majesty as a demon lord. Then, she picked up a cute blue and white striped pair of panties. And Rimuru-sama, of course, should choose this one. Only then can it demonstrate his composure and magnanimity as the ruler of a nation. Miss Xian. I respectfully disagree. Shuna immediately retorted, her voice gentle yet firm. She picked up a sky blue dress-style swimsuit with cute ruffles and bows. For the summer festival, one should definitely wear something cute and refreshing. Rimuru-sama would look absolutely perfect in this. She then showed another white lace-decorated, relatively conservative but extremely exquisite and elegant one-piece swimsuit. Charlotte-sama is also suited for such a pure and elegant style. Xian's choice is simply too extreme. Shuna-sama, your taste fails to grasp the true essence of charm. It's too childish. Xian refused to back down. Miss Xian's choice is a misunderstanding of the noble status of our two lords. It's too shameless. Shuna argued vehemently. I think Rimuru-sama would suit something wilder. Gobta jumped in, pointing at a pair of swim trunks with a strange flame pattern. Idiot. Rimuru-sama wouldn't like that kind of thing. Someone immediately retorted. The conference room immediately erupted into chaos. The executives argued heatedly over the image of their two lieges. Though they usually obeyed the two lords without question, on this matter, they wouldn't budge an inch. Meanwhile, executives with serious or straightforward personalities, such as Honglian and Hakuro, found themselves completely unable to join this bizarre discussion. Honglian crossed his arms, frowning deeply, wondering if these guys had lost their minds after gaining more power. Gerudo looked bewildered, completely unable to understand what there was to argue about swimsuits. Korin simply closed his eyes to rest, as if everything around him had nothing to do with him. Hakuro stroked his beard, smiling as he watched the young ones quarrel, thinking it was a sign of vitality. Hearing the conference room erupt in argument over his and Rimuru's swimsuit styles. Even escalating to the level of national dignity, Rimuru and Charlotte, standing at the door, had different expressions. Rimuru was purely embarrassed and ashamed, his face nearly red as he frantically complained internally. What are these guys doing right after waking up? What's there to discuss about this topic? It's too embarrassing. As for Charlotte, upon hearing Xian strongly recommend that mature and daring swimsuit, Although the subtle influence of the dragon after transmigration had made him highly accepting of such things, a certain underlying consciousness from his previous life as a male still made him instinctively resist. Ah, that kind, let's not. He mumbled softly, instinctively stepping back half a pace. Of course, if he were forcibly made to wear it, with his current personality, he probably wouldn't genuinely get angry. He would only find it a novel experience, but his instincts still made him want to avoid it. However, the executives in the conference room had already spotted their two lords at the door. Rimuru-sama. Charlotte-sama. You've come at just the right time. Someone shouted. And the next moment, led by Xian and Shuna, a group of enthusiastic executives surged out. Holding the swimsuits they deemed most suitable, they began to, enthusiastically, surround the two lords, promoting and demonstrating. Rimuru-sama. You must try this one. Charlotte-sama. This one will complement your temperament. Rimuru-sama, look over here. Charlotte-sama, this one is cuter. Wait, don't come closer. I don't want to wear that kind of thing. Who's pulling my clothes? Rimuru instantly fell into a panic, flustered and helpless amidst a crowd of overly enthusiastic subordinates. Seeing this, Charlotte's golden eyes flashed with a hint of slyness. Just as several hands holding romantic swimsuits were about to touch him, a faint shimmer of magic power flickered around him. The next moment, a tall, strikingly handsome blue-haired man appeared in his place, whose facial features were very similar to Rimuru's but more heroic. He was wearing neat casual clothes, skillfully avoiding all the outstretched swimsuits. I appreciate everyone's kind intentions. The handsome version of Charlotte smiled slightly, his voice clear and gentle. However, I think it's better if I decide what to wear for the festival myself. His composed demeanor and instant transformation ability immediately calmed the excited monsters around him. They all showed expressions of admiration. As expected of Charlotte-sama. No matter the form, he is always so perfect. This composure is truly dashing. The monsters exclaimed one after another, no longer forcibly recommending swimsuits to him. Meanwhile, Rimuru on the other side was not so lucky. Amidst a chaotic struggle and Rimuru-sama, please try this. This one suits you better. And other clamorous shouts. Rimuru's voice could only be heard in a cry of embarrassed alarm. Wah! What are you doing? No. After the chaos subsided, Rimuru was seen wearing an extremely romantic, scantily clad black bunny girl outfit with bunny ears and a fluffy tail. His entire face was flushed crimson, almost steaming. Too embarrassing. He let out a wail, no longer caring about anything else. Covering his face, sporting those bunny ears, he fled in disarray at the fastest speed of his life, instantly disappearing at the end of the corridor. In the sealed space of Rimuru's stomach, Miss Shizu's soul, which had been silently observing, looked at Rimuru's unprecedentedly embarrassing attire. Although she knew she shouldn't laugh, she couldn't help but cover her mouth. Her face showed a complex expression of extreme embarrassment mixed with irrepressible amusement. This child always gets caught up in strange things. Meanwhile, Gobta, hiding to the side, looked at Charlotte, who had successfully escaped using his handsome form and was calmly tidying his clothes. His face was filled with regret, and he muttered in a voice only he could hear, "TCH, the older sister form of Charlotte-sama is still better." The time returns to 1 week ago. Charlotte wandered around bored for a whole day, finally sensing that Rimuru's aura had completely stabilized, indicating he was awake. His eyes lit up, and he immediately rushed off excitedly to find Rimuru. Rimuru, you're finally awake. The moment he saw Rimuru, who was sitting groggily by the bedside and hadn't fully grasped the situation yet, Charlotte happily pounced and hugged him tightly. Whoa. Charlotte. Too tight. Rimuru was a little stunned by the enthusiastic embrace, but then he also laughed. It seems you woke up early. You didn't cause any trouble these past few days, did you? Of course not, I was very well behaved. Charlotte grinned as he let go of Rimuru. And began sharing the interesting things he had seen since waking up, such as Rigard reporting on work, and the reactions of the monsters in the town. While the two were chatting, a light knock sounded on the door, and then Shuna and Xian walked in carrying trays. Lord Rimuru, you're awake. That's wonderful. Xian's face immediately lit up when she saw Rimuru. But then her gaze sharpened as she looked at Charlotte. And Lord Charlotte, we finally found you. You disappeared right after waking up, which made us worry. She pushed the tray forward, presenting a bowl of thick soup with bizarre colors and suspicious bubbling. Lord Rimuru must be hungry after sleeping for so long. Please try my specially prepared, vigor recovery broth. Lord Charlotte, please have some too. Rimuru looked at the bowl of soup and instantly felt his magic essence circulation about to stop, and cold sweat immediately broke out. About this. Shion, I'm actually not very hungry yet. Shuna, standing nearby, also softly complained, Lord Charlotte, where did you run off to? We were looking for you all day. As she spoke, she gently pulled Charlotte closer to her, displaying the much more normal-looking light porridge and side dishes on her own tray. It's better to eat something light and nutritious right after waking up. This is the health maintenance set I prepared for you and Lord Rimuru. Shion and Shuna's gazes met in the air, as if invisible sparks of lightning erupted. Lord Rimuru needs energy replenishment. A newly awakened body needs gentle conditioning. Seeing that the argument was about to escalate, Rimuru and Charlotte simultaneously felt a headache coming on. Alright, I'll eat both, I'll try both. Rimuru forced himself to mediate. Charlotte also sighed and picked up Shion's bowl of soup. Fine, I'll give it a try. Under Shion's expectant gaze and Shuna's slightly worried one, the two struggled to taste the special broth. Charlotte managed his expression slightly better, but Rimuru's face was practically crumpled into a ball. Putting the bowl down, Charlotte gently coughed, looked at the dejected Shion, and spoke in the most tactful tone possible. Shion, we appreciate your intention. It was very unique. However, as far as cooking goes, this flavor might have a lot of room for improvement. Upon hearing this, Shion visibly turned gray and white, as if dark clouds were looming behind her. But Charlotte changed the subject, a hint of interest flashing in his golden eyes. If you are truly interested in cooking, I could teach you some, basic principles and techniques. What do you say? Really? Shion instantly revived, her eyes shining frighteningly bright. Lord Charlotte is willing to teach me. Yeah, I'm pretty free right now anyway. Charlotte nodded lazily. Just then, Shuna took the opportunity to scoop up Rimuru, in slime form, and said gently but firmly. Lord Rimuru surely didn't eat enough just now. I'll take you to the kitchen for something truly healthy and delicious. Having said that, she quickly left this place of trouble, while holding the struggling Rimuru. Charlotte watched Rimuru being rescued, smiled, and said to the determined Shion before him. Let's go, Shion, to the kitchen. Let me see how you usually cook. And so, Charlotte followed Shion, who was highly motivated and seemed to have found a new goal in life. Heading towards the kitchen, ready to conduct a unique cooking lesson. Not long after, the kitchen was a mess, as if it had just survived a small-scale war. Cutting boards were shattered, the stove was scorched black, and several pots were twisted into bizarre shapes. Charlotte rubbed his temples helplessly as he looked at the scene before him. He had just asked Shion to fully demonstrate her usual cooking process. The process was a disaster. Potatoes were thrown directly into the pot without peeling. Fish were prepared for deep frying without scaling or gutting. The most outrageous part was that, due to her extreme devotion to her beloved sword, Goriki Maru, she insisted on using it to prepare ingredients. The result was predictable. Ingredients, along with the cutting board, the stove, and even parts of the wall, were precisely cleaved open. Finally, Shion held up a pot of stew that was an ominous black-purple color, bubbling and gurgling. And whose bursting bubbles seemed to reveal the smiling faces of tiny demons. She looked at Charlotte with anticipation. Lord Charlotte. It's finished. Please taste it. Charlotte. He felt like his natural state influence nullification was about to be breached by this visual shock. Sigh. Charlotte let out a long sigh and decided to start from scratch. Shion, first, we need to understand that cooking is a delicate craft, not a battle. Come, watch how I do it. He had Shion stand aside and demonstrated himself. From how to select and wash ingredients, to using appropriate kitchen tools for cutting and preparation, to controlling the heat, the sequence of seasonings, and the principle of moderation. Charlotte explained the most basic cooking knowledge in simple terms while operating. His movements were fluid and natural, possessing a strange elegance, a combination of the primordial king's micro-control and his past life memories. Soon, a simple dish, perfect in color, aroma, and taste, was finished. The tempting aroma filled the disaster zone kitchen, creating a stark contrast. Try it. Charlotte handed the plate to Xian. Xian cautiously took a bite, and her eyes instantly widened. Delicious. So, this is the true taste of cooking. Lord Charlotte is truly amazing. Unprecedented fighting spirit ignited in her eyes. I understand. Please let me try again. This time, I will strictly follow Lord Charlotte's instructions. Encouraged, Xian picked up the ingredients again. This time, she focused on recalling every step Charlotte had taken. Although her movements were still a bit clumsy and overly forceful, she was completely dedicated, with only one unwavering conviction in her heart. This time, it will definitely be fine. This time, I must make a delicacy worthy of Lord Charlotte's teachings. Just as she was plating the final product, which looked, well, at least it wasn't black-purple anymore, but dark brown, and the bubbling had significantly reduced, just as it was about to be served. A voice of the world echoed in her mind. Notification. Individual named Xian, based on extremely pure conviction and strong desire, conditions have been met. Unique skill chef successfully acquired. This was a peculiar causality type skill. The effect was simple yet powerful. When Xian genuinely believed in her heart that her current cooking was absolutely fine and must succeed, the skill would activate, warping reality to ensure the final product inevitably became delicious. As for the appearance, the skill made no guarantees. Lord Charlotte, I'm finished. Xian held up the dish, which still looked somewhat suspicious but was much better than before. Her eyes shimmering with 100% confidence. Charlotte looked at this work of conviction, picked up a spoon skeptically, scooped a tiny bit into his mouth, having mentally prepared for the sacrifice. However, Charlotte's eyes widened slightly in surprise. The taste was unexpectedly good. Although the seasoning was still a bit unrestrained, and the heat was slightly too high, it definitely fell into the category of delicious. It completely contradicted its terrible appearance. How is it, Lord Charlotte? Xian asked, both nervous and expectant. It's very delicious, Xian. Charlotte gave an honest assessment, though his expression was slightly subtle. A huge improvement. It seems you have a lot of talent. He didn't know about the existence of the chef's skill, assuming it was a miracle born from his teaching and her conviction. That's wonderful. Xian was so happy she nearly jumped, the dark clouds behind her completely dissipating, replaced by sunshine. This is all thanks to Lord Charlotte's excellent guidance. I will definitely work harder in the future, dedicate myself to the way of cooking, and make perfect dishes worthy of you and Lord Rimuru. Charlotte smiled, watching Xian, whose confidence had been rekindled, perhaps a bit too much, but secretly muttered to himself. I did teach her, but something feels off. Isn't this rate of progress a little too magical? Charlotte Tempest looked at Xian's burning expression. I've finally found my life's direction. And couldn't help but mutter to herself. Could she really be a genius? Not long after the meal, Rimuru summoned all core executives to the meeting room via thought communication. Inside the meeting room, the atmosphere was more serious compared to the previous jovial mood. Rimuru first summarized the beginning and end of the pig-headed emperor incident, affirming everyone's efforts and contributions in the battle and subsequent Chu Li. Afterward, Charlotte Tempest leaned lazily against the back of her chair, her golden eyes turning to the taciturn Soe, and asked. Soe, regarding that demon crewmate who was killed, are there any new clues about the Demon Lord faction he mentioned? Soe bowed slightly, his voice calm and unwavering. My deepest apologies, Lady Charlotte Tempest, Lord Rimuru. The other party handled it very cleanly. Currently, no clear directional intelligence has been tracked. As soon as he finished speaking, Benimaru, standing nearby, chuckled confidently, his hand resting on the hilt of his sword. And warlike flames burned in his crimson eyes. HMPH, no matter who the mastermind is, no matter which demon lord, as long as they dare to attack, I, Benimaru, will absolutely use this sword to utterly annihilate them. Shuna immediately pushed up her glasses, the lenses reflecting light, and firmly echoed. That's right. Any enemy attempting to harm Lord Rimuru and Lady Charlotte Tempest, or harm our home, I will utterly crush them with this Goriki Maru. Although Hakuro, sitting in the corner, didn't speak, merely slowly stroking his beard. The extremely sharp glint that flashed through his slightly opened eyes fully demonstrated his attitude. Any monsters or demons could be cut down with a single stroke. In contrast, Gurren, Gerudo, and Korin appeared much calmer. Gurren crossed his arms and said in a deep voice, "When soldiers come, generals block. When water comes, earth covers. Strengthening vigilance and improving our own strength is fundamental." Gerudo nodded, his voice deep and reliable. "I will protect everyone and will not let any more of our kin be harmed." Korin merely snorted coldly, a chilling light flashing in his wolf eyes, everything left unsaid. Charlotte Tempest took in everyone's reactions, smiled lightly, and said in her usual, somewhat lazy yet incredibly reassuring tone, "Well, no need to worry so much. Because, with me here, there will be no accidents." These simple 6 words contained immense confidence and power. As if all schemes and tricks were futile in the face of absolute strength. Rimuru nodded upon hearing this. Charlotte Tempest is right. What we need to do now is to first do our own things well. He paused, scanning all the executives present, his tone becoming serious. So, the most important thing next is, to formally establish our own country. Our current scale has far exceeded the scope of a village. Hundreds of thousands of residents, different races, require more effective management and order. Rimuru explained, his experience as a salaryman in his previous life making him understand the importance of organizational structure. In order to better protect everyone, and allow all residents to live together peacefully and happily. All the executives listened attentively, their faces showing expressions of agreement and anticipation. Establishing their own country was a goal they had never thought of in the past, but now yearned for immensely. Rigurd listened to Rimuru's words, looked at the united executives before him, and recalled the arduous journey of the Rimuru Tempest Federation from nothing, tears welling up in his eyes from excitement. He pulled out a small handkerchief to wipe his eyes. "Lord Rimuru. Lady Charlotte Tempest, well said. We are finally reaching this step." The direction of the meeting officially shifted from addressing past crises to planning the blueprint for the future. The journey to establish the Rimuru Tempest Federation thus took its first solid step. Hearing Rimuru's exposition on nation building, Charlotte Tempest casually asked. Good idea. So, have you thought of a name for the country? Rimuru suddenly froze, his body visibly stiffening. He had been so engrossed in talking about the necessity and benefits of nation building that he completely forgot the most important thing, naming it. Name. This, that. His brain started spinning wildly, his gaze involuntarily drifting towards Charlotte Tempest beside him. Then looking out the window at the monster homeland he had established. In a moment of urgency, a name popped out as if inspired. Then, Tempest. Tempest Monster Federation. How about it? He looked at Charlotte Tempest. Charlotte Tempest's golden eyes lit up slightly upon hearing this, and she nodded indifferently. It's all right, I have no objections. Seeing Charlotte Tempest agree, Rimuru had just let out a sigh of relief when Rigurd elegantly stepped forward and respectfully added. Lord Rimuru, Lady Charlotte Tempest, since the country's name has been decided, how about combining the names of the 2 esteemed lords for the capital's name, calling it Lilim? Lilim. Rimuru and Charlotte Tempest both chewed on the name simultaneously. Oh, sounds good. Charlotte Tempest found it rather interesting. Excellent. Lilim it is. Rimuru was also very satisfied. The other monster executives present also nodded in agreement, finding the name both pleasant and profound in meaning. Rigurd excitedly suggested. Then, to celebrate the founding of the nation. Let's hold a grand banquet so that all residents can share in this joy. A banquet. Yay. Feast. This proposal was immediately met with unanimous cheers and approval from all the monster executives. Rimuru and Charlotte Tempest naturally nodded with smiles. At this moment, Gurren slapped the table with a boisterous laugh, declaring in a booming voice. If we're celebrating, just eating and drinking isn't enough. I propose that, following our tribe's tradition, we hold a martial arts tournament. Let the warriors fully exert themselves, and celebrate this new birth with battle. This proposal made the eyes of many warlike executives light up. But Gobta asked the most crucial question. A martial arts tournament. Sounds amazing. But, Uncle Gurren, what's the reward for the winner? Reward. Gurren was stunned. He had only thought about fighting and hadn't really considered this detail. For a moment, all eyes focused on Rimuru and Charlotte Tempest. Rimuru once again fell into deep thought. A reward, huh? Money, equipment, position. They all feel a bit lacking. He racked his brains, his gaze sweeping over the diverse group of executives before him. He tentatively, cautiously asked. Then, the winner can ask me and Charlotte Tempest for any reward they wish. As long as it's something we can do, and not too outrageous, anything. How about it? No sooner had he spoken than. Ooh. The atmosphere in the entire meeting room instantly exploded. All the monster executives' eyes, especially Gobta's, instantly became like hungry wolves, gleaming with green, ambitious, and fantastical light. Any reward. We can make requests to Lord Rimuru and Lady Charlotte Tempest. Anything. The executives' breathing grew heavy, and various silly grins appeared on their faces. As if they could already see themselves standing on the podium in their moment of glory. Gobta seemed to envision endless mountains of snacks. Shuna pushed up her glasses, imagining Lord Rimuru wearing various, cool, outfits she had prepared. Benimaru imagined gaining stronger power. Even the calm Soe's eyes flickered. Gabiru was already fantasizing about being worshipped by thousands after his victory. Looking at the executives whose fighting spirit instantly burned to its peak, as if they were about to rush out and start the competition, Rimuru suddenly felt that he might have proposed a truly extraordinary reward scheme. Looking at the executives whose fighting spirit instantly burned to its peak, as if they were about to rush out and start the competition, Rimuru suddenly felt that he might have proposed a truly extraordinary reward scheme. One last thing. Rimuru's voice pulled everyone back from their fantasies of rewards. It's the summer festival. The executives showed some confusion, not quite understanding the specific meaning of festival. Rimuru explained, his tone carrying the deep resentment of a corporate slave from his previous life and a fondness for the monsters. I've been looking around the city these past few days and found that everyone, especially the goblin and orc tribes, only know how to work tirelessly. Building houses, farming, patrolling, and don't understand how to rest and entertain themselves at all. This won't do. He slightly emphasized his tone. So, this summer festival is for everyone to completely relax and simply play. There will be many delicious food stalls, fun games, and wonderful performances. And he scanned all the executives and announced a major decision. From now on the National Founding Day every year, there will be a mandatory 3-day national holiday. No one is allowed to work, everyone must come out and have fun. This is an order. Rimuru knew that with the preliminary preparations, the actual holiday might be close to a week, but that was exactly the effect he wanted. This unprecedented, mandatory rest order stunned the executives. But seeing the unquestionable concern and determination in Rimuru's eyes, they quickly understood that this was their master's care for them. As you command. Rigurd was the first to bow in response. He had actually already noticed the problem of his subjects being overworked. Haha. Playing around. Sounds good too. Gurren laughed heartily. Lord Rimuru is truly thoughtful. Shuna smiled. Other executives also nodded in agreement. This proposal passed unanimously. All right. Meeting adjourned. Everyone go prepare. Rimuru announced. The executives, filled with excitement and motivation, left the meeting room one after another, eager to get to work on their respective responsibilities. The meeting room quickly fell silent, leaving only Rimuru and Charlotte Tempest. However, just as Rimuru was about to discuss some details with Charlotte Tempest, there was a hurried knock on the meeting room door. Come in, Rimuru said. Patrol Captain Rigur walked in quickly, his face serious, and without time for a bow, he swiftly reported. Lord Rimuru. Lady Charlotte Tempest. Unidentified flying objects have been spotted approaching above the city. Flying objects. Rimuru and Charlotte Tempest exchanged glances. Yes. Rigurd said with a solemn tone. It's a sizable contingent, riding winged pegasi. They're flying towards Lilim. Rimuru and Charlotte Tempest quickly went to the edge of the town and looked up. They saw a cavalry troop, well-equipped and riding magnificent Pegasi, suspended in the air. A chilling aura assailed them. The leader was none other than the Dwarf King, whose presence was as solid as a mountain. Dwarf Hero King, Gazel Dworgen. Rimuru murmured the other party's name. They had met once before during their journey to Dworgen to find dwarf craftsmen. Rimuru, you know him? Charlotte Tempest asked, tilting her head. Yes, Rimuru nodded, he is the king of the armed nation Dworgen, a powerful hero king. I met him once when I went to Dworgen. Before the other party seemed to make a move, a majestic crimson magic essence soared into the sky. Gurren, who had appeared on a high ground at some point, held one hand to the sky. An incredibly massive crimson barrier, exuding an immovable, heavy presence, instantly unfolded. It enveloped the entire city of Tempest Lilim like an overturned bowl. The barrier's light shimmered, radiating extremely strong defensive power. However, because the intentions of the other party were unclear, Gurren did not activate the offensive and terrain-altering effects of the immovable fortress, maintaining only the purest defensive stance. Lord Rimuru, Lord Charlotte Tempest. Gurren reported via telepathy, his voice steady. The barrier has been deployed. Please instruct on how to proceed. Rimuru looked at the Dwarf King's contingent in the air, which had not immediately attacked despite the barrier's deployment, and slightly relaxed. If possible, I still hope to communicate first and resolve this peacefully. In the distant sky, King Gazel felt the huge barrier that had instantly unfolded below, and a flicker of imperceptible surprise crossed his eyes. The barrier's strength, range, and deployment speed far exceeded his expectations. What an astonishing barrier! Such scale and quality could never be cast by an ordinary monster. His personal guards also showed expressions of shock, gripping their weapons and becoming vigilant. Just then, a figure ran up from the ground, panting. It was the dwarf craftsman Kijin, who had rushed over upon hearing the news. He passed through the barrier and came to the front, kneeling on one knee and respectfully saluting, King Gazel. Long time no see. It has been a while, Kijin. King Gazel's gaze shifted from the barrier to Kijin below, his tone calm yet authoritative. Yes. Kijin responded excitedly, knowing in his heart that the king had not come with pure hostility. Rimuru hopped to the front of the formation. Charlotte Tempest also slowly flew beside him, her golden eyes calmly observing the dwarf king in the sky. Although we've met, allow me to reintroduce myself. Rimuru tried to make his voice sound friendly and confident. I am a slime named Rimuru. Don't let my appearance fool you, I am one of the leaders of the Great Jura Forest Alliance. This next to me is Charlotte Tempest. Charlotte Tempest nodded, a bit socially anxious. King Gazel looked down from above at the blue slime on the ground and the extraordinary blue little dragon, and spoke in a deep voice. I'll get straight to the point, Rimuru. I am here to see you clearly. See clearly. Rimuru was puzzled. King Gazel's hand rested on the sword at his waist. With this sword, I will see your true nature. I must teach a lesson in humility to you, who so presumptuously calls himself a forest leader. Rimuru felt a bit wronged. If your sword isn't just for show, then accept my proposal. King Gazel's voice carried an undeniable authority. If you pass the test, I will acknowledge you and your companions as harmless. With that, he drew his gleaming sword with a clang. One of the ministers behind him exclaimed in surprise, Your Majesty, are you going to use that move? HMPH, King Gazel chuckled confidently, fighting with true strength is the fastest way, isn't it? Rimuru looked at the other party's high fighting spirit, knowing that this battle was inevitable. He also didn't want to show weakness at his own doorstep. All right. I accept this proposal, and I'll make you regret calling me presumptuous. The next moment, Rimuru's slime body underwent a transformation. He quickly transformed into a human form holding a katana, his eyes sharply focused on King Gazel in the sky. Knowing that the opponent had no true hostility, but rather was testing him. For the fairness of this duel, Rimuru looked up and shouted, Gurren. Gurren, who was at a higher position, immediately understood. With a wave of his hand, the huge crimson barrier covering the entire city quickly receded like a tide, and the sky returned to its original state. This retraction and expansion fully demonstrated his absolute control over the barrier. Seeing the opponent voluntarily withdraw such a powerful defensive barrier, King Gazel smiled faintly. It was indeed the Rimuru he was familiar with. King Gazel already had his answer in his heart. An opponent willing to duel fairly, rather than relying on defense, usually doesn't have a bad nature. You win if you can withstand a series of my attacks. King Gazel stated his condition. Rimuru was stunned. This condition sounded simple, but the opponent was a hero king. However, don't underestimate the sword of me, Gazel Dworgen, the sword saint. King Gazel's voice carried absolute confidence. Just then, a gentle breeze blew by. Treant Torna's figure, as if coalescing from the shadows of the trees, quietly appeared beside the arena. She smiled and said, "Then, I shall bear witness." The ministers behind King Gazel were immediately shocked. Could it be the legendary Treant? Even King Gazel himself was somewhat surprised, then revealed a knowing smile. It seems I need to apologize for calling you presumptuous. The appearance of the Treant and her attitude were in themselves a silent endorsement. Rimuru, hearing this, happily said, "Then the duel." He thought the other party was going to cancel it. Before he finished speaking, King Gazel interrupted him, his fighting spirit even stronger. "However, this has nothing to do with our duel to ascertain your character." Rimuru was stunned again. "Since there's a witness," King Gazel pointed his sword at Rimuru, "all that's left is for our blades to clash." Rimuru also got into position, saying helplessly yet firmly, "Yes, when I win, you'll have to explain yourself properly." Begin. Treant Torna's clear voice announced the start of the duel. King Gazel launched the first attack, his figure instantly blurring. He closed in on Rimuru as if teleporting, his sword flashing with a sharp cold light as it slashed down. Rimuru dared not be slow, immediately raising his sword to meet it. Clang! A crisp, loud clang of metal exploded. Rimuru steadily blocked the powerful, heavy sword strike, but his arm vibrated slightly. He was secretly amazed. Such strength. King Gazel's offense continued relentlessly, his sword techniques raining down like a storm. Stabs, parries, sweeps, slashes, each strike was concise and efficient, imbued with honed skill and immense power. Rimuru responded with all his might. Although he hadn't studied swordsmanship for long. Thanks to the precise analysis of Wisdom King and the meticulous guidance of Hakuro. His movements were exceptionally precise, always parrying or dodging with minimal motion. For a time, he fought back and forth with King Gazel, the clang of metal echoing continuously. Charlotte Tempest watched with keen interest, her golden eyes following their movements, analyzing their sword techniques. After a series of probing quick attacks, King Gazel suddenly leapt back, creating distance from Rimuru. He gripped his sword with both hands, and an astonishing aura and magic essence began to gather on the blade, making the surrounding air feel heavy. "Take this, Rimuru. Be careful. Waterfall, heaven and earth thunderclap." King Gazel roared, shouting the name of his renowned ultimate technique. Rimuru's heart tightened. He had naturally experienced the power of this move from Hakuro. Daring not to be careless in the slightest, he immediately concentrated all his spirit, infusing magic into his blade, and stood ready. King Gazel's figure vanished again. The next second, he reappeared directly in front of Rimuru, unleashing a horizontal slash imbued with terrifying power. Rimuru barely managed to see it. Having been tormented by Hakuro daily, he knew the subsequent moves. He desperately raised his sword to block. Clang! The immense impact cracked the ground beneath Rimuru's feet. Next, from above, almost at the same instant, King Gazel's second sword strike came down from another incredible angle. Rimuru gritted his teeth, relying on Wisdom King's prediction and his own reactions. He twisted his sword to the limit and blocked again. Clang! Another loud crash. Rimuru's arm trembled violently, but he ultimately managed to steadily block these incredibly swift consecutive attacks, imbued with the might of heaven and earth, thanks to his overall strength and Hakuro's guidance. He looked up, a smile mixed with effort and pride on his face, as if to say, "I blocked your moves." King Gazel watched Rimuru block his ultimate technique purely with reaction and skill. The last trace of doubt in his eyes completely vanished, replaced by pure admiration and recognition. He sheathed his sword and burst into a hearty laugh. HMPH. HMPH ha 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 ha. My sword was blocked by you, Rimuru. After the laughter, his expression became serious and sincere. After our exchange, I understand. You are not an evil being. Your chosen companions won't be bad either. The duel concluded with Rimuru successfully passing the test. The Sword Saint's approval carried more weight than any words. King Gazel sheathed his sword, looking at Rimuru with undisguised admiration in his eyes. Indeed, Rimuru, you truly are something. I'm surprised you could completely block my waterfall heaven and earth roaring thunder. Rimuru also breathed a sigh of relief, transforming back into his slime form, and bounced awkwardly. Ah, no, it was just luck. That's a move Charlotte and I often saw when training with Master Hikuro. We got hit by that move a lot during our sparring, so I'm quite familiar with it. What? King Gazel's rugged face showed surprise at the news. Could it be that your master is? Just then, an old but vigorous voice, filled with a relieved smile, came from the side. Oh ho 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 tilde, that was splendid, Lord Rimuru. Of course, Lord Charlotte's sparring practice also played an indispensable role. Everyone looked over and saw Hikuro, who had arrived at the side of the field at some point. He was stroking his beard with a smile, his eyes full of pride at his disciple's excellent performance. King Gazel recognized the legendary elder immediately upon seeing Hikuro, and his tone involuntarily carried a hint of respect. Oh, isn't that Sword Demon Dono? Sword Demon was Hikuro's former title. Hikuro looked at Gazel with satisfaction, as if seeing a junior reunited after a long separation. Back then, you were just a little rascal who occasionally got lost in the forest and needed this old man to show you the way. Now you've truly become remarkable, a monarch of a nation, and your swordsmanship has reached perfection. After speaking, Hikuro nodded slightly, his tone becoming more formal and respectful. Oh, my apologies, Dwarf King. I spoke out of turn. Your current achievements have long surpassed this old man's existence. I am truly happy for you. King Gazel, praised so highly by the swordsmanship senior he admired in his youth, scratched his head a little awkwardly, revealing a slightly simple and honest smile unbefitting his title as Hero King. To receive such high praise from Sword Demon Dono is truly humbling. This junior has benefited greatly from your guidance even to this day. The atmosphere on the field instantly shifted from the previous tension to one filled with the harmony and warmth of mutual admiration between martial artists. Triant Torna watched this scene from the side, a joyful smile on her face. The crisis was averted, and the tense atmosphere vanished. Rimuru enthusiastically invited King Gazel and his entourage to be guests in the Rimuru Tempest Federation. Rimuru treated him like an old friend he hadn't seen in a long time, rather than a king who had come to test him. He eagerly showed Gazel around the bustling town under construction, introducing various facilities and plans. Along the way, whenever they encountered monster residents greeting them, Rimuru would smile and respond, naturally introducing. This is King Gazel of the armed nation Dworgen, he's my friend. King Gazel calmly followed beside Rimuru, observing the newly emerging city. He saw monsters of different races, goblins, ogres, orcs, and what appeared to be direwolves, working together. Although busy, they were orderly, with most faces showing hope for the future rather than the numbness of oppression. The local customs seemed exceptionally simple and positive. You govern this place very well, Rimuru. King Gazel couldn't help but praise, his tone carrying sincere recognition. It's not easy to make so many different races of monsters coexist harmoniously. Haha, thank you for the compliment, everyone is just working hard for a better life, Rimuru said, smiling shyly. The tour concluded, and Rimuru then took King Gazel to experience a new feature of the Rimuru Tempest Federation, the hot springs. The two national leaders soaked in the warm spring water, enjoying a rare moment of relaxation, with small wooden trays floating nearby, holding drinks. After a few drinks, the atmosphere became even more cordial. King Gazel also explained the main purpose of his visit. Rimuru, I came here primarily because I learned that after the pig-headed emperor was subjugated, his vast pigmen tribe did not disperse but instead collectively submitted to a certain monster organization. I needed to see for myself whether this organization, capable of accepting and controlling such power, would be a blessing or a curse for the surrounding regions. Rimuru suddenly understood. So that's it. Don't worry, King Gazel, we established this nation simply to provide a place for everyone to settle down and live. We absolutely have no ambition for expansion or invasion. We seek peaceful coexistence. King Gazel nodded. Through their previous confrontation and what he had witnessed, he already believed Rimuru's words. However, just as the two were engaged in a serious and formal, diplomatic talk, from the direction of the women's bath next door, some ill-timed sounds of playful laughter faintly drifted over. Lord Charlotte Tilda. Is the water temperature suitable? Let me scrub your back. This was Xian's enthusiastic voice. Why ya? Wait. Xian. Don't suddenly touch there. It tickles. This was Charlotte's somewhat flustered and shy voice of protest, clearly referring to a ticklish spot. He, Lord Charlotte's skin is so nice. This was Shuna's voice, laced with a smile. You two, don't come over together. The intermittent sounds made Rimuru and King Gazel, who were discussing serious matters, fall silent instantly. Rimuru. King Gazel. An awkward yet amusing atmosphere filled the air. Rimuru cleared his throat twice, attempting to restore the serious tone. Well, let's continue. King Gazel took a sip of wine, his composed expression seemed to waver slightly. And he finally just shook his head helplessly, a slight upward curve at the corner of his mouth, as if to say, Your Rimuru Tempest Federation truly has simple and honest customs and is full of vitality. This diplomatic meeting continued in a very subtle yet exceptionally relaxed manner, amidst the occasional sounds of playful laughter from the women's bath next door. After a small interlude in the hot springs and a frank exchange, night fell. Rigurd had already ordered a lavish banquet to be prepared to entertain King Gazel and his party. The banquet hall was brightly lit, and the atmosphere was lively. The Dwarf Kingdom's ministers were quickly conquered by the unique cuisine of the Rimuru Tempest Federation. Especially the delicacies prepared under Shuna's supervision and the mellow fine wine. They shed their initial reservations, and many were already flushed with drink, with no shortage of loud praises for the food here. I never imagined a monster nation could have such delicious food. This wine is truly potent. It's no less impressive than the royal palace's finest. However, in one corner of the banquet, the scene was a little different. Lord Charlotte, Tilda. Shuna picked up a carefully selected, perfectly roasted piece of meat with chopsticks and gently offered it to Charlotte's mouth. Charlotte naturally opened her mouth to accept it, chewing contentedly and narrowing her golden eyes. Like a cat being stroked, completely immersed in the enjoyment of the food, occasionally mumbling vague praises like, delicious. Xian was also eager to join the feeding line. In this joyful and harmonious atmosphere, King Gazel raised his wine glass, looked at Rimuru beside him, and spoke with a composed expression. Rimuru, after what I've seen and heard today, I have no more doubts in my heart. Therefore, I formally propose, are you willing to form an alliance with our armed nation Dworgen? Rimuru blinked his bean-like eyes in surprise upon hearing this. An alliance. But, wouldn't that mean your dwarf kingdom officially recognizes the existence of our monster nation? Wouldn't that cause you trouble? He first considered his friend's situation. King Gazel shook his head, his gaze sharp and far-sighted. However, Rimuru, if you can truly take control of this Rimuru Great Forest and establish stable order, then, the resources your nation possesses, and the wealth and potential strength brought by its geographical location, will surely surpass our nation in due time, I believe. He paused, then continued. At that time, having a nation that can become your backing in advance and establish an equal and friendly relationship with you would be much more convenient for your future development, wouldn't it? Rimuru listened to these frank words, thought for a moment, and found them very reasonable. He turned to look at Charlotte, who was being fed nearby. Charlotte-kun, you agree too, right? Charlotte's mouth was full of food, so she could only nod repeatedly and vaguely. Indicating complete agreement, her mind clearly more focused on the next bite of delicious food. It's my turn. Lord Charlotte Tilda, this time it was Xian's turn to feed. Seeing this, Rimuru smiled, then turned back to King Gazel and said solemnly. I understand. There's really no reason to refuse. We really need friends. King Gazel smiled. Precisely. We are mutually beneficial. I agree to your proposal. Rimuru responded happily. The alliance was thus established at this pleasant banquet. King Gazel seemed to be in an even better mood. As if remembering something, he casually asked. Speaking of which, has your nation's name finally been decided? Rimuru puffed out his chest and proudly announced. Yes. It's decided. It will be called the Jura Tempest Federation. This name encompassed the Jura Great Forest, where it was located, combined the names of the two leaders, and indicated the nature of the nation. King Gazel repeated the name softly, then nodded. Jura Tempest. That's a good name. He raised his wine glass. Then, to the friendship and future of the Jura Tempest Federation and the armed nation Dworgen, cheers. Cheers. Rimuru also raised a small wine glass, and Charlotte temporarily stopped being fed to raise her cup as well. The crisp clinking of wine glasses heralded a new chapter of friendly relations between two nations, two distinctly different civilizations. The atmosphere of the banquet also reached its climax. Thanks for watching.